sabrinasalvati.
All right. Happy Tuesday, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Sabby Sabs podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. If you're new, I want to let you know that Sabby Sabs podcast is a part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can catch me there on Thursdays for the Sabby and JB show. And you can catch me here on Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and every other Sunday. I want to give a shout out to everyone watching on YouTube, Rockfin, Twitter, and Rumble. And welcome back, fam. We are just a few days away from the presidential election. Can you guys believe it? Can you believe it's just around the corner? Hello. Yes, just around the corner, ladies and gentlemen. Max is going to be here in just a second. Before he gets here, I want to go ahead and show that beautiful thumbnail to show you what we are going to discuss tonight, fam. Let's dive into it. Well. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, what are we discussing? Max Blumenthal will be here for an interview. We're also going to discuss Michelle Obama blames men. And Michelle looks very upset in that picture. We'll get into that and what apparently happened at the Kamala Harris rallies. We'll get into all of that. We're also going to discuss Muslims for Trump. What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Yes, everything crazy is happening at these rallies. We're also going to discuss Kamala's shocking polls. You'll notice when we get out of this layout here, the chalkboard behind me tonight says shock polls. Yes, and I believe these are the final polls that we are going to show tonight before the presidential election. So we're going to get into that. I'm going to make some predictions. We're going to pay $270 to win. We haven't done that in quite a bit. And last but not least, we got to get into the Tony Hinchcliffe Latino controversy at the Trump Madison Square Garden rally. We're going to get into that, ladies and gentlemen. And you'll have to let me know how you feel about all of this. Is it overdone? Is it overhyped? Is there a valid point? Should this have not happened at a presidential rally? We're going to get into all of that, and we will dive into the Nevada ballot measures, fam. Yes, Nevada, which is one of the swing states. We're going to get into that tonight as well. And we're going to do call in. So make sure you stay tuned later on in the show. You'll be able to call in. We'll be able to chit chat. This will be the last call-in segment that we get to do before the presidential election, because Tuesday night, I'm probably going to be here pretty late just because we know how long it can take for the results to come in for some of these states. So I'm just forewarning everyone, get comfy Tuesday night. And we're going to go ahead and give a shout out to Sabby patrons as well before Max gets here. All right. Shout out to everyone who is a Sabby patron. Thank you so much for your support. If you're interested in being a Sabby patron, I have 5 categories: ultimate, Sabinators. There's also a group called Sabsters. Don't know if you knew it, but they're there. And of course, there are Sabbies. Yes, there are. We love some Sabbies up in this piece. And of course, there are members. We love you too. Thank you guys so much for holding down the fort, ladies and gentlemen. And we want to give a special shout out to new Sabby patrons. We call them newbies. That's what we call them. Let's give it up for Audra Riley. Thank you. Thank you so much. All of their names are listed on this doc here, and you can also see their names scrolling across the bottom of the screen, which I forgot to select. And there we go. Names across the bottom of the screen. Let's go to some of the comments in the chat, ladies and gentlemen. Again, get ready to play 270 to win tonight. I'm looking forward to see what you guys think about all this. It's going to be taken into account the final polls. So that's what we're going to be using to make our prediction, as well as some news that I received out of North Carolina, which corporate media, I do not think, is talking about this. And what does that mean for Kamala Harris? You'll have to stay tuned. Shout out to Tim, though, says we love Max. Free Palestine. I think you mean Palestine? Yeah. ZG, I am unfortunately pretty familiar with Tony Hinchcliffe. He's just trying to become as famous as he possibly can. That's all that motivates him. So I'll tell you guys a little something. I didn't even know who Tony Hinchcliffe was until I saw the roast of Tom Brady. And I don't know if everyone saw it. If you haven't seen it, watch it. It's hilarious. They really do get Tom Brady. And I say that as someone who's a Patriots fan. I'm sorry, but they really got Tom. They really got him on that one. So that was the first time I heard of him. And I will forewarn everybody, like the same jokes that he made during that MAGA rally are the same type of jokes that he made during the Tom Brady roast. So just FYI, and we'll get into that tonight, like whether or not like that was the appropriate venue for that type of comedy. But we'll get into all of that. Shout out to Max Belecki, says more than 50 million early votes cast in the U.S. so far. Yeah, and who are they for? We'll get into that as well. We'll get into all of that. Greetings, I know myself. Michelle Obama needs to kiss my ass and then kick rocks. So condescending, it's sickening. Well, tell me how you really feel. I know myself. And I think Max is here. You ready? Okay. All right, guys. My special guest tonight is Max Blumenthal. He is the founder of The Gray Zone. Welcome back, Max. What's going on? Oh, we can't hear you.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
All right. Good to see you.
Good to see you. I know you've been, oh, no worries. I know you've been incredibly busy. So the first thing I want to dive into is this documentary. I want to show this to everybody because everyone's not on Twitter. If you just give me a second here. Okay. I noticed you shared this on Twitter. For everyone who's not aware, Max Blumenthal posted this, my new documentary, Atrocity Inc., How Israel Sells Its Destruction of Gaza. And you listed that it was premiering in the link below. I want to talk about a little bit about this documentary here because it's not the first documentary that you've made about Israel, but I want to dive into how it sells that destruction of Gaza, because one of the things I think a lot of us has noticed is that it does have that support from corporate media.
Yeah, I mean, it's sold. This is like a historical film at this point. They don't need to do any more salesmanship. They sold it on corporate media. And now do you see, Israel is at the most grisly phase of the war, as if you thought it couldn't get any worse and more horrifying. They're ethnically cleansing areas in order to remove all people from Jabalia refugee camp. Probably they'll destroy all of Jabalia and Beit Lahia if they're allowed to get away with it. These are the northernmost areas. Something like 250,000 people or more live there. They're trying to force them all out through terror, bombardment, mass kidnapping. The images coming out of Jabalia look like the Holocaust. It's the most visually documented ethnic cleansing / genocide operation ever, without a doubt, because of the advent of social media and the proliferation of cell phones in Gaza. And our media is not covering it. But they were covering this issue every day after October 7th because Jews were killed. And as the most famous Palestinian poet and man of letters, Mahmoud Darwish, said in an interview with a French Jewish actress, the only reason that history cares about the Palestinians is because we were placed into confrontation with Jews, and Jews exist at the center of the history of the West because of the Holocaust and so much else. And so after Jews were attacked, specifically Jewish Israelis, CNN deploys its most ardently Zionist figures, Jake Tapper, Dana Bash, Wolf Blitzer, who is a former researcher for AIPAC, and they implement what's known as the CNN effect. For those not familiar with this, the term was coined by my friend Pierce Robinson in 1999 in an essay about the selling of the Yugoslavia war by NATO, the destruction of Yugoslavia as a state. And there were real massacres there. But through the continuous repetition of atrocities, both real, exaggerated, and invented, and the freezing out of the quote-unquote enemy narrative, the narrative of the Serbians, the Western public was galvanized in support of NATO's operations. And this is a liberal interventionist blueprint for regime change. It comes from the Democrats. Israel's employing a liberal humanitarian interventionist tactic after October 7th to shock the Western public, and specifically the American public, into supporting what it has always wanted to do, and which it needed to do since 1948 in order to complete the process and consolidate the Zionist colonial project, which is to destroy all resistance and destroy the Palestinians as a people, end the refugee question. We can talk about how this is all playing out now. And they did it not by just playing the footage, thousands of hours of footage of what took place on October 7th, in which, yes, people were shot, civilians were shot by Hamas militants. There's footage of that. But by fabricating atrocities to such an absurd degree that the Western public was conditioned to believe that Hamas was even worse than ISIS and Nazi Germany, and that Israel, therefore, not just had the right, but the obligation to do whatever was necessary to prevent October 7th from happening ever again. In other words, genocide. And that took the form of first lies about 40 beheaded babies rolled out on CNN, then all sorts of fabricated atrocities about families being chopped to pieces, babies being killed in various ways, a fetus being cut from her mother's womb, all invented by figures like Yossi Landau, who's a central character in my film, who comes from a group called Zaka that was in the kibbutzim, or communities that were attacked in southern Israel days after October 7th, and made up all these stories in order to fundraise for his organization, which made millions off of October 7th tall tales. Then they went straight into the mouth of Tony Blinken, the Secretary of State, as he explained to the Senate on October 31st why there could not be a ceasefire with Hamas, and Israel's operations, which had already destroyed much of northern Gaza, had to continue. He repeated fake stories from Yossi Landau. The fake stories were repeated by Joe Biden. And then as the public started to turn against this brutal assault, and we started debunking a lot of these lies, and the Palestine Solidarity Movement really got on its feet, and we started seeing encampments spread on college campuses all across the country, Israel started to feel like it was on the back foot. It spun out the ultimate propaganda hoax about mass rape or mass sexual assault carried out in systemic fashion by Hamas militants with orders to assault women on October 7th. And, you know, I show how we debunked it at the Gray Zone, and other independent outlets did so, and how the media worked hand in glove with Israel to spin out these lies without ever questioning what they were being fed, setting themselves up for complete humiliation, as we saw with the New York Times. So this film is about Israel's successful marketing of a genocide through the corporate media. And ultimately, at the end, I point the finger at corporate media figures who sold the Holocaust of our time. And because I believe that they're culpable, that they have blood on their hands. Yeah. And, you know, we can talk about the specific figures. And this all takes place within the course of about 47 minutes. So I couldn't run through every lie and debunk everything. But I think what we did here with Propaganda and Company and my co-director, Sut Jali, who also made an excellent film called The Occupation of the American Mind that everyone should watch, about the Israel lobby. What we did is we provided everyone with a free teaching tool. You can go into your community and show it to people who are on the fence or might not understand exactly what happened after October 7th, on October 7th. And, you know, I think we succeeded with that. Last night in DC, we showed this film at Busboys and Poets, restaurant, cafe, and it was a packed house. So it's definitely getting around, and people are, after over a year of genocide, people are not exhausted. You can just still feel the righteous anger about what took place.
That's right. It's very well done. I watched it a couple of days ago. I highly recommend everybody else check it out. And speaking of media figures, or I kind of consider him to be a media figure, even though he's not like technically a commentator. He's a pollster, but one of the individuals that's mentioned in this documentary is Frank Luntz.
Frank Luntz, yeah.
Yeah, pollster. You guys have seen me show some of his clips on the show before. You mentioned him, and I didn't even think about this at that point in time. I was mainly focused on the commentators on corporate media. I didn't realize what he did. So I'd like for you to get into a little bit about that, about a poll that he conducted that also was pretty biased towards Israel.
Yeah, I mean, it's after we were concluding our decimation of the mass rape hoax. I got a tip, and I didn't exactly know what the source had for me, but they said that they had been attending these seminars that had been held in New York that were based on focus groups held by Frank Luntz, in which New York legislators and influencers were being hosted, and basically Israel lobby groups were helping them make the case for what Israel was doing for Gaza. And they conducted these focus groups based on basically the people who were participants in the focus groups that Frank Luntz specializes in were asked questions like, what would be the worst crime Hamas could be guilty of? Extermination, slaughter, kidnapping, torture, and then rape was one of the questions. And so this slide really stuck out to me because it was a slide presented to influential people in New York politics, telling them basically accuse Hamas of rape because this is the most effective way of demonizing this group in order to justify Israel's assault on Gaza, which we consider a genocide. And so I realized, I put two and two together, and I said, this is why they started this whole hoax and started putting this together. They actually did focus groups. They actually did the equivalent of market research before they came up with a new hoax. I mean, of course. And I have the details here. I have the literal slides. So I published a piece about it at the Gray Zone, and I cover this in Atrocity Incorporated. How, I mean, it's almost so cynical that you can't believe it, that a foreign apartheid state activates its lobby and its paid pollsters who get millions of dollars to determine what to accuse the enemy of, even though they don't have the facts to support it. And then they go to the UN and all their media assets and do it. And to this point, I would say the majority of the American public, if they were polled, probably believes that Hamas committed rape on a mass scale on October 7th because it's repeated so much. It is still repeated to this day by Kamala Harris. Every time she talks about October 7th, she repeats this fraud, this hoax, including in Detroit in a recent rally. I mean, in Detroit, of all places, she repeated it. And she said the worst crime was October 7th. So Frank Luntz has done it again. This is someone who has a long record of experience with the Israel lobby in helping them shape their various propaganda constructs and the language and talking points they use in arguments, all the way down to the campus level. Like campus activists for Israel are presented with his studies and recommendations. And I've had them get up when I've done talks on various campuses and basically and literally read from his handbook.
I didn't know that about him. I just thought this was a pollster who came around during election season that so watching that documentary really woke me up about that. I was like, I didn't know this guy was, in deep with the Israeli lobby. It's interesting what you find out when you start to dig a little bit deeper. But one of the things I noticed too, the repetition, right? Because one of the things that they'll teach you is that repetition is effective. And I think that's why we continue to see people like Kamala Harris continue to say it over and over.
Yeah, I mean, she hits her talking points. Like everyone, her opponents say she's dumb, and that's not the issue with her. Like she's very good at like a kind of very mechanical, robotic legally trained, someone who's very well trained in the courtroom. She can advance arguments that she's been prepared for. But there's no depth there. There's no critical thinking. And that's the perfect person they want out front, because she will advance an argument that has been debunked again and again without ever investigating or questioning, simply because it's been market tested. So effectively, the Democrats are using Frank Luntz's polling data as well. When she says Hamas committed mass rape, they're reaching for what they think is the most effective talking point. And this talking point and propaganda construct were created for specifically liberal white women who comprise the base of the contemporary Democratic Party and Kamala's support. The Israelis launched a hashtag to go with it when they launched this fraud in late November, Believe Israeli Women, based on the Me Too moment where we were supposed to believe all women. But we can't believe Israeli women because they're Israeli. And we know that when Israeli Zionists are speaking in public, they're probably lying. So feminist organizations actually took a step back from this one because they were so horrified by what they were seeing in Gaza, especially their younger members, their younger constituents. I know Planned Parenthood's younger members are very opposed to the genocide. So, but Kamala, she's heavily supported by the boomer generation, older women, as well as liberal Zionist women. So that talking point is for them, but it comes from a Republican pollster, Frank Luntz. By the way, I met him once. I interviewed him in his apartment for a documentary, and the interview didn't really fit, so it never made the cut. But all over his walls were newspaper clippings of victories by Israeli national politicians, prime ministers, that he actually consulted for, that he was working for. That's one of his proudest pieces of his legacy, is working for foreign politicians in Israel. And these guys are the Democrats, Republicans. The consultant class is full of people who have worked in Israel. That's where some of the most lucrative contracts come from. A lot of the people who helped get Obama elected went to work in Israel for Netanyahu's opponents.
Wow. Interesting. I'm finding out a lot tonight. Like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. One of the things I want to show you too, actually, I think you probably already saw this, but the viewers probably haven't seen this. Speaking of the media, I want to get your take on this clip here from CNN between Mehdi Hasan and this other gentleman here who apparently goes off on him very quickly, just to show people what is happening here. Now, to be clear, after this episode, CNN, Abby Phillips, she did come forward and issue some type of apology or whatever. But the reality is what this gentleman here says to Mehdi Hasan is no different than what I've seen on CNN and MSNBC and corporate media when they're referring to Muslims, Muslim voters, the Palestinian people. Everyone, listen to this really quick. And Max, I want to get your take on this.
If you don't want to be called Nazis, stop doing it.
You've been called an anti-Semite more than anyone else's table. Yeah. And people will sit there and, no, by me, I never called you an anti-Semite. I mean, I'm not sitting here saying
I'm a supporter of the Palestinians, so I'm used to it.
Yeah, I hope your beeper doesn't go off. The thing is that...
Did you just say I should die?
You should not.
No,
Did you just say I should be killed?
No, I did not say that. I said, no, I did not say that.
Hold on.
Did your guest just say I should be killed on live TV?
I said I hope
Guys,
you don't...
let me just stop.
You said you hope my beeper doesn't go off.
Because you said I'm a big supporter
of the Palestinians.
Of Hamas?
Guys, let me stop.
Palestinians.
Are you a supporter
Am I
of
what?
Hamas?
No, of course I'm not.
I apologize.
Are you a racist, violent person inciting violence against
Ryan,
me?
That's disgusting. That is completely.
No, I apologize.
Good job, CNN. Let's have first block say the Muslim guy should be blown up on TV.
Don't say then I apologize. You literally.
I thought you said Hamas.
You didn't think I said Hamas. I said I supported Palestinian rights.
Yes, I did.
Why? Because when you hear
What's funny
Palestinian,
is Rudy Giuliani said this yesterday, so you're a great guest to be here to defend Rudy Giuliani.
I wasn't going to entertain nonsense today, and so at this point,
this is what we're in now. This is America in 2024.
Here's what I will say.
Forget the racism.
That's right.
I should die.
I didn't say that. You
said,
die.
what does beeper mean? Don't give me your
I did not say you should die.
Why did you say with my beeper go?
What did you mean?
What did you mean by the beeper? What did you mean by the beeper? No, you didn't. You said, I hope your beeper doesn't go off.
Ryan, stop talking.
At least have the guts to support your racist comment.
I'm so sorry.
Let her bring it back.
This is why This is why yesterday's rally was disgusting.
Don't call us Nazis, but I'm going to threaten the brown guys, the terrorists, and kill him.
Because I didn't ever say Donald Trump was Hitler. Man. But do you know who stood on a stage yesterday and said, I want to come to the Nazi rally? I don't have to make up words and call you something. You're saying it for yourself. And what you just said
Kamala
right here, apologize, but I will tell you, I don't accept that apology, and you didn't even say it to me.
I didn't say
that was disgusting. But I can be offended when you don't even say it to me. I'm not Puerto Rican, but I was offended by what he said yesterday. And I'm offended that the former president and potentially future president would allow it and go for 12 hours and not say, I don't care. Because you know what? When Kamala Harris put out statements about switching up opinions, it wasn't good enough for Republicans.
Why are you looking at me?
Because you said it.
Why don't you take this?
And then they go into the Trump rally thing. But the part I wanted to focus on is that dialogue there between Mehdi Hasan and the other gentleman there who issued an apology and then went back on Twitter and said the exact opposite. What I want to hear from you, Max, is why do you think, and in particular, Mehdi Hasan, who drives me crazy because sometimes he can be really good on an issue, but then at the same time, he just wants to do similar what Robert Reich does, which is continue to simp for the status quo and the establishment. Why do you think Mehdi Hasan is continuing to put up with that type of behavior? The very same people that he's sitting at the table with while that gentleman was telling him, I hope your beeper doesn't go off. I think we all know what that means. Why is he still trying to hold water for these establishments and for like the Democratic Party, number one? And number two, how did you feel about that discussion that took place on CNN?
Well, that was so cringeworthy on so many levels. And I agree with what you said leading into it, but that's why you're looking at the reason why Mehdi Hasan has been simping for and plumping for Kamala Harris and the Democrats. First of all, he's British. I don't think he's even American. I don't even know if he's an American citizen, but he came to Washington from this crappy little island that, would never get, that has caused so much harm around the world. For people like in the media, it's like you're just trapped in this little island and you're separated from the world. And when you come to America, it's like you've hit the big time. If you're in England, if you're in London. And also it's so much freer here. Like the discussion is so much freer. Look at all of the interrogations, raids that are taking place on independent media figures there. I mean, it's just so small and tightly compressed. So Mehdi comes to Washington. He's working for Al Jazeera, but he really wants to hit the big time. And the way to do that is he decides, and it's natural for him. He's a British Muslim. The Republicans aren't going to accept him. He tried to get accepted by Rupert Murdoch's Daily Mail and pitched a column to them where in a leaked letter, he said that he would attack the left from within the left because he's socially conservative. And actually before that video leaked of him as a kind of Muslim hate preacher delivering a tirade in a mosque where he said that Yazid, who is sort of like the Shia devil, is a homosexual music lover. And, he totally reinvents himself in Washington as a liberal who is a darling of the Democrats. He's obviously a very talented communicator. And people love British accents in Washington. They take you so much more seriously. So he actually manages to get a show on MSNBC's Peacock cutout. It wasn't very well rated, but he gets in with the Beltway inner circle of the Democrats as a British Muslim. It's kind of unheard of. And it does speak to a certain level of talent, but also cunning and conniving on his part to do that. And he has to walk the line because he has all these fans, and I guess he has some conviction. He believes in the Palestinians. He has to walk the line between supporting Palestinians and being ingratiating himself with a political party that is anti-Palestinian, pro-war, welcomes Liz Cheney more than they would welcome someone like Mehdi Hasan. And so we can see the delicate balance that he tries to entertain on Twitter when he's arguing with Palestinians all the time who say that it's disgusting that they would ever be expected to vote for the author of the Holocaust that is claiming the lives of their families. He's also not Palestinian. He's of, I believe, Pakistani descent. And he's just going forward with this. It doesn't make any sense. He's asking the Muslims and Arabs to strip themselves of their dignity and go to the polls for Kamala. Why is he doing this? It's because if he doesn't do this after being fired for MSNBC after October 7th, or being let go because he was too pro-Palestinian, I guess, he won't get back on those CNN panels, and he will disappear and possibly, I don't know, have to go back to his island across the Atlantic, the former colonial media power, England. Nobody wants to do that. It's dreary. The weather's bad. And here, this panel worked out so perfectly for him. And he does a really good job of getting under people's skin. Like, he recently had a confrontation with Sarah Palin, where she starts calling him obnoxious because he won't let her speak. And then he said, "You're calling me obnoxious? You're a racist." Which isn't, I think, like, that's like an escalation. And then he just starts pouncing on her, but he is obnoxious. He did the same thing to Noam Chomsky in an interview. Noam Chomsky, who was like approaching 90, just jumping down his throat, not letting him speak. Slavoj Žižek, he wouldn't let him talk. I mean, I don't agree with Žižek, and a lot of what he says is clownish, but he never lets anyone talk. And so he gets on people's nerves, and he got this guy, Ryan Gerdersky, who's just like some conservative incorporated clown, to bring out his inner racist, his inner Zionist, and a conversation that had nothing to do with Israel-Palestine or Lebanon. And it worked out perfectly for Mehdi. Everyone's talking about it. He's back on TV. He's back on the A-Team. His network that he started, Zeteo, which impersonates an independent outlet, is going to flourish as a result of this. And if Kamala wins, he is going to get at least B-list, if not A-list. I mean, A-list would be Kamala herself, but he's going to get people from the administration on his Zeteo interviews, which will give him more influence than we would enjoy as outsiders who are like refusing to support the two parties. And so the contradictions are impossible to square between supporting the rights of Palestinians and simping for Kamala. But that's not the point. The point is he just wants to get back on TV, get the big time guests, remain in the Beltway, and keep this meteoric rise to influence and stardom going. And so basically I am saying that, yes, he is an opportunist and a careerist like most people who come to Washington, where I grew up. And he does have some convictions. He's definitely talented. But people, I mean, that's why he's making this case for Kamala. It relates to him and his own ambitions, and it's working out very well. And just notice, he wasn't talking about Palestine before the Republican Zionist dweeb guy brought up the pager attack by Israel in Lebanon. That's not why he was there on that panel. He was just there to echo Democratic Party talking points, saying the same things every other resistance figure, former Biden staffer, was saying on that panel. There was nothing that he was saying that was particularly unique. He wasn't using that platform to challenge the Zionist consensus at CNN. And that's what he's going to do when he's on there.
What do you mean by, like, when you said Zeteo impersonates an independent outlet?
Yeah, I mean, look at the studio. Like, no independent outlet has a studio that nice. It looks like a professional broadcast studio. You know, then they'll have contributors attacking Israeli propaganda, and then he'll be hosting people who are like bogus saccharine celebrity influencers who are backing Kamala. And you know, it's the same model that he embraced at MSNBC. And you're seeing this take place to some degree on the left, but it's more of a model that's taken root on the right, the mainstream alternative media model, you know, where billionaires are backing figures to echo and parrot the narratives that come out of alternative media on the right. It's like the narratives about COVID and the globalists and so on, but they have fancy studios and they're all in the tank for Trump now. and they're not alternative in any way.
Yeah, I don't think everyone realizes just how much it costs to have like a studio like that. I mean, I don't have a studio, obviously. You guys can tell, but it's expensive. Like those desks are expensive. To not have to have a microphone in front of you, that means that the studio is mic'd up. That's expensive. You have to have an audio engineer. Like all these things are like, it costs a lot of money, and that money has to come from somewhere. Plus, I've been kind of skeptical of some of the people that were commentators on corporate media that all of a sudden over the past 2 years, they're like, I'm independent. Like, like Chris Cuomo and like Mehdi Hasan and all of them. I've been kind of skeptical, and I'm just like, are you really independent, or are you just kind of trying to ride this wave of, look at me, I'm free from corporate media, but their talking points still sound like corporate media?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it's so obvious who is real and who's not. This has been since October 7th, we've undergone the ultimate mask off moment. And honestly, I mean, Palestine is kind of easy. It's something to unite around for people who might have disagreed on the Syria dirty war, Ukraine, and so many other issues, COVID. But this one's it's just so obvious that, if you're not standing with Palestinians as they're facing genocide, you're evil. There's no other way to say it. So looking past that, where did Mehdi stand on Syria? He is Shia, by the way. He was supporting the dirty war, attacking Seymour Hersh when he would come out with pieces, exposing how the Duma chemical attack was a staged incident, attacking everyone who questioned this, and putting forward the case for bombing the crap out of Syria. And he, supported the Ukraine proxy war on COVID. He was as big a fanatic as Anthony Fauci, attacking anyone who questioned it, and all the damage that was done to America, and particularly to inner cities in America. He was taking the hardest line for the Democrats. And so he comes in on Palestine. And a lot of other people are. Chris Hayes, for example, he's able to say a few things on Palestine that are humane and important to say at a certain moment. But at the end of the day, they're supporting the same program, the same political program internationally and financially, the same Western financial program that is behind the genocide, that is responsible for the genocide in Palestine. And they'll go back to it once there's a ceasefire. I mean, do we honestly think that a world in which the United States maintains hegemony is going to be good for the Palestinians? No, but that's the world that a lot of these, a lot of fake independent commentators are defending. There are all these boutique left magazines that have shiny covers, and they somehow actually managed to produce magazines. The best left-wing writers want to write for them, like dissent. And I mean, nobody reads them, but like they have budgets, and it's a way to get credibility. It's really like the respectable left, N+1, dissent. There's this magazine I saw called Lux by this former Intercept columnist who's supposed to be real hip, Natasha Leonard, who used to attack me for various anti-war positions, but claims to be an anarchist. They all recently gathered in London for a meeting with the new leaders of the Open Society Foundations of George Soros, which was passed on to his son, Alex Soros. And they're all, the Open Society Foundations is doling out grants to these small leftist magazines. I mean, and when I say leftist, like on social issues, they are as leftist as it gets. But on supporting Western hegemony, they always take the same line that Soros has taken. Soros, who was described in a 1991 Washington Post article by David Ignatius as an overt operator doing what the CIA used to do covertly in funding color revolutions, funding regime change. And so that's kind of like, I think, the difference between true alternative media or independent left media like yourself and the ones who could work in corporate media, sometimes get fired for taking the wrong position on Palestine, but are always trying to edge their way back in and exist at the left edge of the conventional opinions set by the Democratic Party establishment, is that they fundamentally support the underpinnings, the ideological and political underpinnings of Western empire. And we do not, which puts us out in the political wilderness and leaves us constantly searching for the right third-party candidate who's scrounging for 1% of the vote. That's the way that, I mean, we're in some ways, we're sort of like internal casualties of an empire. But at the same time, I think we have more grassroots reach than ever before, which is why you see people impersonating the aesthetic.
Yeah. Yeah, try to make it look like, look, I'm just in my house. This isn't like a studio or anything. So Max, we did talk about what happened to Jeremy when he was arrested in Israel. And it made me wonder about some things. And David K just brought up a good question. He said, I worry for Max's safety. Be careful, Max. You've made a lot of powerful enemies who hate your honesty and the reach of your message. Do you ever worry, Max? Do you ever get concerned that you may be a target the way that I know Jeremy was in Israel, but do you ever get concerned that you may be a target?
Well, I was just randomly going through Facebook messages on the Gray Zone's Facebook page, which we just stopped dealing with because the suppression, the censorship on Facebook was so extreme that we couldn't reach anyone there. So I checked it for the first time in a while, and I had a message from some random Israeli who said, Jeremy needs to leave Israel immediately. And then they later wrote and said, Jeremy is an enemy. If I find him, I will act accordingly. He puts my family and friends at great risk. And Jeremy, I sent it to Jeremy, and he said, well, he's been receiving these messages from Israelis through his own Twitter account and through his own Facebook account. So they heard about it in the media, and they started putting out the word that he was in the country and that they should go neutralize him. And this is a country of, 5 to 6 million Jewish Israelis. A large percentage of them have bodies like our killers. I mean, that's a country that could probably defeat a European country with a much larger population in a war in a few days with all the US weapons it has. And it's just a population that has a disproportionate percentage of highly trained killers and psychopaths who run over scores of people at once in bulldozers in Gaza, as we've seen, blow up their houses for fun. So Jeremy was definitely at risk there. And he was accused by the Israeli police at certain points of being a deep Iranian spy.
Of course.
Which, imagine being in his position. He was held in solitary confinement. They're accusing him of spying. He gets out and people are threatening him. So that was a terrifying scenario. We're really grateful he's out, and for everyone who supported him, including his former boss, RFK Jr., who came through. A lot of other people didn't. So for all the criticism I've had of him, we're really grateful. I think it made a difference. From where I sit, I can't be looking over my shoulder all the time. I faced character assassination. And I think in this era, character assassination is much more effective than it was in the past. It's why we don't see the physical assassination of as many political leaders, national leaders, as we used to in this country in the 60s and early 70s. The assassination attempts on Donald Trump were honestly unexpected, and it shows how he's sort of crossed a line where the character attacks, the lawsuits, the lawfare didn't work. Something's going on. As for myself, look at our Wikipedia page at the Gray Zone. Look at my Wikipedia page. It's a form of a digital assassination. And the point is to isolate me from polite society, to make sure that no mainstream publication will ever publish me again, to ruin my career, make it uncomfortable for me to even go to like a college reunion, things like that. And if that fails and I start to achieve greater influence than I already have, then, perhaps I should worry. But I think that's the position we're in. And honestly, what can you do? What can you do? Another lesson is like, you can't hide from your fate. You have to decide that this is what you believe in and have the courage of your convictions and go forward. There's as we've seen with so many recent assassinations, there's really nowhere to hide. So you might as well just be out there and let your freak flag fly, as Jimi Hendrix said.
Yeah, it's one of those questions I always wondered. When Katie Halper was here, I was asking her about this too. For people like yourself and Katie Halper and Aaron, speaking truth to power, and you are Jewish, but you're anti-Zionist. Do you feel like you get a lot of pushback, in particular from the Jewish community? And when would you say that you first realized that Zionism was problematic and what Israel was doing?
Well, to answer your last question, it was a process I went through, from going on the Free Birthright Israel trip and obviously seeing that I wasn't being told the truth, to paying close attention to the Second Intifada, the destruction of the Jenin refugee camp in 2002, the assault on Lebanon in 2006, and then 2008, 2009, the first major assault on Gaza really shook me up a lot. And getting to know Palestinians in my own society and giving them the time of day. I mean, there was a point when I was younger and I wanted to be like a liberal Zionist, and I would get offended by some of the things they would say. But at a certain point, I decided to humble myself and just listen to what they said and determine for myself if their narrative was correct. And it matched up with the reality that it matched up. And so I embarked on this book project to do this book called Goliath, Life and Loathing in Greater Israel. I had this book called Republican Gomorrah that was a bestseller because I got on NPR for like 15 minutes on Terry Gross. And if you get on Terry Gross, you automatically get a bestseller because everyone who listens to that show is a liberal who reads lots of books. And I was telling them about the Republican Party in a refreshing kind of a new way that they didn't understand, and the forces behind it in the George W. Bush era, when it was the Christian right and Christian Zionism that was really animating his administration at every level, including its foreign policy. And yeah, so I had this book success, unexpected, with Nation Books, a small publisher. So I said, I want to do a book about Israel because I'm Jewish and I can get in there and I want to spend a lot of time there and show Americans the real Israel they don't know. But for me, it was also a learning process. Like, I'm going to see what it's like. And I did so over the next 4 or 5 years. I think it took about 3 years to write it, 4 years for it to come out. Came out in 2013. And it felt like I was like running up against a wall with a grenade just to like open a hole in the wall. And the grenade was exploding on me because I was attacked so harshly for that book, but it was a grassroots success without the same promotion. You know, I wasn't going to get on Terry Gross because she's a liberal Zionist. And, you know, I think it succeeded, but that's when I received the harshest attacks because I wasn't, you know, I still hadn't been fully discredited within the Jewish establishment. I remember sitting with my grandmother one day in her kitchen, and she opened a letter, like, you know, snail mail from one of her friends. And it was one of her friends had cut out an article from the Jewish Daily Forward. The oldest Jewish publication, used to be written in Yiddish. I think it still is. It has a Yiddish edition, but it was an article attacking me, saying like, I'm the most extreme Jewish anti-Zionist that's ever been seen, like crazier than Norman Finkelstein. And she just looked at it and kind of like discarded it. But, you know, it's at that intimate level that you get attacked if you're Jewish. Judge Richard Goldstone, for example, he authored the Goldstone Report for the UN, showing that Israel committed war crimes in its 2008-2009 attack on Gaza. He was prevented from attending his own grandson's bar mitzvah in South Africa. So it's like this very hermetic environment if you're Jewish, especially in a place like South Africa, but even in the US. And you have to be willing to just go forward and be an anti-Zionist because you just believe that's the right thing to do. After that point, the attacks maybe continued for like 2 years, but at this point they're just like, they think I'm insane, that I can't be reconciled with, and that the only thing to do with me is to try to, demonetize, censor, and continue to tamper with my Wikipedia page. But there's no like engagement or debate. I guess I'd be curious, there's so much pressure right now from the Democratic Party on Black Americans to support Kamala, and on influencers, especially, and celebrities. And whenever I see one of them step out of line, I see them get attacked more harshly, or at least as harshly as I ever was. So I think there's a similarity there, that you're just supposed to be a Democrat no matter what they do. So I don't know if you've experienced some of the same things, but.
Absolutely. I've been attacked relentlessly by Roland Martin. A lot of people are like, why is this guy coming after you? I was like, it's weird. But relentlessly by people like him, the Kesheev group, also the Black church. That's another one that will come. And it's really weird because I grew up, like I was raised in the church. And I remember they taught us similar things, that this is what is supposed to happen, that Israel is supposed to have all of the land, and they'll tell you that it's biblical. And I always push back that the Bible is open for interpretation. So that wasn't well received. Just letting you know. I didn't like that too much. But those of us that are not supporting Kamala Harris, like, I feel like if you're Black and you're not supporting Kamala Harris, they're heavily attacking us. They're saying, oh, well, then just get Trump then. I'm like, well, actually, I'm voting for Jill Stein. And they're like, oh, well, Jill Stein is a Russian puppet, and how dare you not vote for this Black woman? And it drives me crazy, Max, because I've said this multiple times in my show, and if you look at the research that's been done, I'm like, they're trying to pass off Kamala Harris the same way that Rachel Dolezal was passed off. And just because someone went to Howard doesn't mean that they're a Black American. Anyone can go to Howard. I know
white people who went to Howard.
Exactly.
I'm not saying Kamala's white. Don't get twisted, but.
No, but it's true. Anybody can go. Like, it's not just for Black people, right? And it's just, I'm like, get out of here, man. And they're like, well, she's just like you. I'm like, no, she's not like me. She really isn't. Like, she had a lot of opportunities that a lot of us just did not have. She already had a leg up because of the fact that, and I, don't want to mention badly of people who passed on, but the reality is, when she says her mom was struggled and put money aside, her mom came from a high caste system, Max.
Yeah, she did.
Like, it's not like she came here from a bottom caste system and she really had to struggle hard and stuff. I mean, as a PhD student, he's going to be limited with how much actual work that you can do to earn money. But she already came in from an upper caste system. And so, no, I'm like, she's not. Stop saying that. She's not like us. And then there's a lot of pushback as well, like from the boule. And the reality is, even people like me, because I didn't go to HBCU, because I wasn't a AKA, I am looked down upon, even though I went to college, but I didn't go to HBCU.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you weren't networking in the same way.
Right.
And she comes the race is constructed differently in the islands. Like, you have a class of people there who are, when they come to the US, they're just Black, but there they are an elite class that rules over Afro-descendant people in a way that they wouldn't in the United States. And then they could come here and apply for affirmative action, go to a HBCU, and then run for office, and then expect all Black people who had a totally different experience to vote for them or support them. I mean, Obama came from a different island. He came from Hawaii. He was raised by a white woman who was, during the 1960s, working for USAID, a CIA front in Indonesia, at a time when the CIA was running an extermination operation against communists and socialists on the island. Her history is very unusual. Gerald Horne wrote a piece speculating that Obama's biological father may have been involved with the CIA in West Africa. But Obama came to the US with a lot of advantages as well. And he's African and American, but it's a totally different experience. So he had to go to Jeremiah Wright to be legitimized in order to run for office in Chicago, where you have to be legitimized you have to be considered legitimate, like Harold Washington, by Black people. And then he throws Jeremiah Wright under the bus. He was going to have to throw him under the bus because he was pro-Palestine. He was anti-war. He was from the Black liberation tradition of James Cone. Obama needed to cast that off, but he stepped over his back to get where he was. And it's so infuriating now to see him lecture Black men on not supporting Kamala, someone who has a very similar background to him. And my sense is that there's this feeling, like the feeling that a lot of Jews I know have for years, that we couldn't talk about this. We couldn't talk about Zionism. And somebody just had to come out and just say it and be destroyed. Like Norman Finkelstein was the one who did it. And now some people, you're hearing it, but it's coming from people like Candace Owens, who's coming out on the right.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, I feel like on the low are listening to her who are not from the right, because she's just saying forbidden things that a lot of people want to say, that you will be destroyed for saying in public if you are like a progressive. I don't know what you think of that, but that's my take.
No, it's 100% true. And it just, I even go back to Bernie 2020. And I remember even back then, they were trying to tell us that we needed to support Joe Biden. Like this was another, even like the Dem primaries, like the Black church was saying, we're going to get behind Joe Biden. I'm like, really? So I'm supposed to get behind Joe Biden too, just because I'm Black? I'm not even a part of the church, but that was the order. Like, you guys better get behind Joe Biden. And I'm like, he didn't have any policies like really for the Black community. He was running on saving the soul of the nation, whatever that even means.
That was so wild. In South Carolina, had his rallies, they were playing Lift Every Voice and Sing. Like, did he even know what that was? I mean, it was just, how did he pull that off? And let me just qualify, I can't endorse everything Candace Owens is saying about Kamala Harris. I'm just trying to speak to the appeal and the frustration that a lot of people have in the moment, and then no one's speaking to it. But there's going to be a terrible reckoning for the Democrats for what they've done to all the quote unquote minority groups they take for granted, from Arabs to Black people, Latinos. I mean, they just take them all for granted. If you think that Donald Trump is getting unprecedented support from these groups, wait till someone comes along who actually really knows how to speak to them, who isn't from the Republican Party and giving tax cuts to billionaires. It just hasn't happened yet.
That's true. Max Blumenthal, thank you so much.
Yeah, great conversation. It's always cathartic. Thanks a lot.
All right, guys, that was Max Blumenthal. Again, of course, if you're not checking out the Gray Zone, what are you doing? What are you doing? We're going to get to some of the comments, ladies and gentlemen, and then we're going to dive into our news stories for tonight. Don't forget, we are doing call-in tonight. This will be the last call-in before the presidential election. I'm not going to be able to do a call-in on Tuesday because the election, it's going to go kind of late. You guys know how this thing goes. So I'll probably be live pretty late Tuesday night. But again, like I said, if you're not checking out the Gray Zone, what are you doing? Hello. Yeah. All right, let's go ahead and get to some of the comments. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you, Silvio Pina. This is to celebrate Mr. Blumenthal in case I miss him later. P.S. Tell him he has big fans. Thank you so much. Shout out to my comrade JB says, I voted for Jill Stein today, so that happened. doing the damn thing, JB. A lot of people are saying this, by the way. I'm seeing it in a lot of comments, whether it's a video I watch or social media. I'm seeing a lot of people saying that they voted for her. Thank you for this one as well, Silvio. Ouch. Too late. Too little, too late, Bernie. Shout out to Deb White, who just became a Sabby member. Whoop, whoop. Thank you, Matt Miller. Peace. Right back at you. Thank you, Silvio. Max, any actual reported assaults by freed hostages? Where can we find the documented stats on actual violence? That is a good question. I think also, I know he's not here, but Electric Intifada, I think they were tracking very close statistics. So I think if you don't follow them on Twitter, Electric Intifada. They might be able to answer that as well. Thank you, Doreen. Where can we watch this? The documentary. It is, let me put that back up on the screen really quick. Whee! New documentary, Atrocity. There's a link here. Eric, you can probably grab this link and put it in the chat so that people can check that out. Thank you for asking, Doreen. Thank you for that. And thank you, Name It. Are you single? I am not. I am very married. All righty. Thank you, Samud. I'll be the first to let you know Mehdi is a DNC grifter, but WTF these Sakis. This is why I call everyone with the Kamala sign in my neighborhood to their face. Zaki, Zaki, Zaki. Damn. And thank you, Marvin. Great interview with Max B. Good job, Sabby. Thank you, Marvin. Thank you, PS. Voted for Jill Stein Sunday. Felt good. All right. I'm telling you, it's great when you get that feeling, right? It's great when you get the feel good feeling. Let's go ahead and get that comment on Rockfin. Thank you. Yeah, there's another one. Also voted for Jill today. Holly said the same thing. Hey, hey, hey. Thank you, Dave, for the tip on Rockfin. Thanks for your work, Max. Intrepid stuff. Yeah. Let's get into it, fam. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't had a chance to do so, don't forget to go ahead and smash that like button. Thank you so much. And we are diving into our first story. Let's see which one we're diving into. I forgot. Oh, yeah. Is this what I wanted? 1 second, guys. I don't even know if I put. What did I do? Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. So let's start with this Madison Square Garden story, because this is a doozy. So I'm pretty sure many of you have probably heard by now, right? So Donald Trump had a rally at Madison Square Garden. He filled Madison Square Garden. As if you live in New York, I'm sure you probably know that Madison Square Garden is not an easy venue to fill, but he was able to do that. And there was some controversy that took place at that Trump rally. First and foremost, I want to say one big thing. The fact that he was able to fill Madison Square Garden could possibly mean there is some type of political realignment. Now, of course, not everyone at that rally is from New York or lives in New York, but there were quite a bit of New Yorkers that were there. I watched videos and I heard the New York accent. I know, okay. So I heard the accent, so I can see that here. And even Jake Tapper is admitting that there could be a possible realignment. Check this out.
This largely issues-focused messaging from Trump's 2024 campaign operation is one of the reasons why this race is so competitive. A professional campaign appeals to a multiracial coalition focusing on issues where Trump polls better than Harris, immigration, the economy. And we saw some evidence of a political realignment with the very fact that yesterday Trump was able to fill the 20,000 or so seats at Madison Square Garden in Manhattan for his campaign rally. It's a feat that likely no other Republican presidential candidate would have been able to pull off, not in the...
No other presidential candidate would have been able to pull this off present day, right? So I have noticed, because I've been looking at the data, and it does seem like Donald Trump seems to be getting more support in some of these blue areas like New York, also New Jersey. Now, it doesn't mean that New York is going to turn red, but there is some type of political shift that is happening. And in particular, at that particular rally, there was a couple of like jokes that were made by Tony Hinchcliffe, who apparently, I think this was not the event to do that, right? At a political rally, your goal is to win people over. You're trying to pull people to your side to get votes. You don't want to push people away. And so for those who are not aware, Tony Hinchcliffe, the very first time I saw this comedian was during the Tom Brady roast. And the roast is funny. You guys got to watch it. I'm a Patriots fan, but I'm telling you, even as a Patriots fan, they grilled Tom Brady's ass. I could not help but laugh. It was hilarious, right? But I think the difference between that and this is that at a roast, that type of comedy is different and also expected. The type of humor that you hear at those roasts tends to be pretty raunchy, just keeping it real. But at a political rally, does it have its place there? So we're going to get into some of the things that Tony Hinchcliffe said that a lot of people are up in arms about, but is it everybody? And then you're going to get to hear from some of the people, in particular, those who are Puerto Rican who were at the rally as well. Listen to this.
All right. Heck yeah. It's a cool black guy with a thing on his head. What the hell is that? A lampshade? Look at this guy. Oh my goodness. Wow. I'm just kidding. That's one of my buddies. He had a Halloween party last night. We had fun. We carved watermelons together. It was awesome. Believe it or not, people, I welcome migrants to the United States of America with open arms. And by open arms, I mean like this. It's wild. And these Latinos, they love making babies, too. Just know that. They do. They do. There's no pulling out. They don't do that. They come inside, just like they did to our country.
Yeah. So obviously, as you guys know, that hit a nerve with a lot of people, not just people that were Puerto Rican. And what was interesting to me, though, is that for all the people that are criticizing the Latino comments, I didn't hear people, as the women of The View are doing this too. I didn't hear people criticize the comments that he made about Black people. So that's just something that I did notice. Tony Hinchcliffe, again, is a comedian. Again, I've seen that same style of comedy during the Tom Brady roast. Same type of jokes. He made jokes about Black people. He made jokes about like different races, like again, and everybody was laughing. But again, I think a roast is different from a political rally because you don't want to turn people away, especially considering some of these swing states, how close it appears to be. You definitely don't want to do that. Donald Trump right now is beating Kamala Harris with the Latino vote, but there have been a number that have come forward since this event and are heavily trying to mobilize Latino voters that maybe were not going to vote to come out against Donald Trump because of what was said at the rally. Now, here's the thing. Donald Trump did make those comments. Tony Hinchcliffe did, but what people are saying is that Trump did not come forward and dismiss those comments. But from what I read recently, apparently his campaign is trying to distance itself from Tony. So that in itself ought to tell you something. Now, before I show you what some people said about, the rhetoric that was there and how they were very much against it, there actually is a video here of a couple of rally attendees that are Puerto Rican. So they were there at Madison Square Garden. And I want you to hear what they had to say about the comments.
Live from the garden. The rally was great. Puerto Ricans for Trump. Trump 2024.
Yo, now that I got my fellow Puerto Ricans, obviously what happened there tonight, everybody's talking about it.
Epic.
But the Puerto Rican joke, the garbage island stuff. Do you guys even give a fuck about that?
No, I don't. No, I don't. I don't even pay a mind. I don't even pay attention to it.
Puerto Ricans for Trump. Lock in. Stay locked. Stay locked in on the gold. Y'all already know, my boy. I told you guys. So.
Yeah, so you guys see that, like, not everybody feels that way, and they were there. Also, another thing that I noticed, and I think people really need to take this rhetoric back. The number of people that I heard saying that this was like a Nazi rally, that is not what I saw. There was one guy that was on stage, and this was, he probably shouldn't have said this either. I think this was in poor taste, that did appear on the stage and said, oh, look, I'm at the Nazi rally or whatever. It was supposed to be a joke, but he shouldn't have said that, because now, of course, corporate media is using that as proof. Like, look, see, we told you it was a Nazi rally. They're comparing it to a Nazi rally that happened at Madison Square Garden decades ago, but that's not what it was. There were Black people there. There were obviously Puerto Ricans there. As you can see, there were people of all different races at that rally at Madison Square Garden. So again, I think this is corporate media trying to find a way to vilify Donald Trump because he's doing so well. And we'll get to that tonight. Because he is doing so well, let's bring up the race thing. Let's bring in this and let's show, oh, it's a Nazi rally. And that is not what I saw. And I don't support Trump either, but based on the videos that I saw, that is not what I saw. So I think the exaggerations are not going to help Kamala Harris's campaign, but you can bet she's using those comments that Tony made and is trying to milk it. And also there's Chuck Rocha. Chuck Rocha, for those who don't remember, he was a part of the Bernie campaign. He is also speaking out about this, and he is trying to energize Puerto Ricans in Pennsylvania. Now you have to remember, I believe there's almost 460,000 Puerto Rican Americans that live in Pennsylvania. This is a state that both Kamala Harris and Donald Trump are fighting for. So keep that in mind.
Look, I've been doing this a long time, and normally everybody says everything's all baked in. You know what you get. Oh, Chuck, you Democrats can't take a joke. I think last night could have cost him this election, and let me tell you why. I've been doing this for 35 years. I'm not paid to be pretty on TV. I'm paid to win elections, and what that meant last night was Puerto Ricans are a very prideful people. There's 600,000 of them in Pennsylvania. Will this mean that all of them run to Kamala Harris? No, but I'll tell you what. Last night there was a group of Latinos that got together and said enough is enough, and this morning as Puerto Ricans are waking up in Pennsylvania, this video was on their cell phones because Democratic operatives, including me, Nuestro PAC, and a bunch of other folks said, enough with it being baked in. Let's remind people about how they really feel about our community. And when you have that many Puerto Ricans, not only in Pennsylvania, but in 4 marginal congressional districts in New York, I think this could really hurt him.
Yeah, and there's no guarantee that all of those Puerto Ricans in Pennsylvania are going to say, okay, I'm going to come out and vote for Kamala now. There's no guarantee that's going to happen. I actually don't think that's going to happen. But what it could have done was energize those who were not going to vote at all into coming out and voting. So that's another thing. And also I want to say this. This is why speeches should be vetted. Because this is the risk that you run when you allow people to come give a speech and you haven't looked at, no one has looked at the speech in the campaign at all. That is the risk that you take with that. But I noticed something else as well, because, you know, the women on The View, of course, Sunny Hostin and Anna Navarro used this as their moment to come forward and just say, oh, let me tell you something, Mr. Trump. Let me tell you something. Because I'm Latina and da-da-da-da. And what was very interesting to me, again, we want to bring up this point. Sunny Hostin, who is Black and Puerto Rican, I noticed that she took to the Latino comments, but didn't say anything about the comments that were made about Black people. So this is just something that was very telling to me, something I've been paying attention to. Another thing that was very telling. People were more upset about the comedian's comments about Latino people, but they weren't that upset about genocide. Morning Joe, the women on The View, they were more upset about a comedian making jokes about the Latino community at Trump's rally than they were about genocide. Where was this same type of energy and anger about the kids that are being killed in Gaza, in the West Bank, in Lebanon? Where was that same anger? Where was that same energy, ladies and gentlemen? Where was it? You know, Colin points this out. Colin from Indie News Network. May I remind you, All that while people are pearl clutching over a racist trope at a Trump rally that the Dems are complicit in a fucking genocide. Newsflash, liberals are just as racist as Republicans. They are just smart enough to keep their mouth shut. So you see what I mean? These are the kind of things that I pay attention to, you know, and as someone that is independent media, it is my job to show you what corporate media is leaving out. It is my job to show you what corporate media won't say to your face. So they are more upset about that than they are about a genocide. And apparently they were also more upset about that than they were about the statement that Rudy Giuliani made. Listen to this.
September 11 was our darkest hour. October 7 was Israel's darkest hour. They are our best friend. I worked for Ronald Reagan for 8 years. Ronald Reagan said, we have to be there for Israel always because they are always there for us. Hamas is not there for us. Iran is not there for us. They want to kill us. And the Palestinians are taught to kill us at 2 years old. They won't.
Everybody hearing this?
Let a Palestinian in Jordan. They won't let a Palestinian in Egypt.
Who's going to tell Rudy Giuliani that Palestinians do live in Jordan and Egypt? Who's going to tell him this? The Queen of Jordan is Palestinian. There are Palestinian refugees in Egypt as well. Why isn't Sonny Hostin more upset about this?
Harris wants to bring them to you. They may have good people. I'm sorry, I don't take a risk with people that are taught to kill Americans at 2.
When are Palestinians taught to kill Americans? So this is dangerous rhetoric. And so this is my thing again. They were more upset about the joke that was made about Latinos. And by the way, not all the other racial groups that Tony also made fun of. Just the ones about the Latinos. And that's probably because Donald Trump is ahead of Kamala Harris with the Latino vote. We got to start putting 2 and 2 together, folks. Where was this outrage towards what Rudy Giuliani said at this rally? Where was that outrage? Palestinians are taught to hate and kill Americans at the age of 2. There was no outrage. You know why? Because it's not working politically. They had to show that they had that outrage towards the Latino vote because Kamala Harris is losing the Latino vote. This is why they didn't have the outrage towards the jokes that he made about black people. She's not losing. She's ahead of Donald Trump with the black vote. She may be behind some of her predecessors, but she's still ahead of Donald Trump with the black vote. And they damn sure ain't going to bring up the things that were said about Palestinian people, even though Kamala Harris is struggling with the Muslim vote right now. Now, what's interesting is check this. Just in, Puerto Rico Senator Zarada Buxo is endorsing Donald Trump today in Allentown, Pennsylvania. So I guess what I'm saying is that is the outrage overplayed? Is this corporate media once again trying to make you feel that more people are angry than they actually are? We got to ask. We have to ask these questions. Something to think about, folks. We can't fall for it. Can't fall for that. Let's go to some of the comments here in the chat. Thank you, Phyllis. Hey, Sabs, voted for Jill and Butch yesterday. There's another one. See? Shout out to Zachary, who's been a member for 3 months. Sad to hear that Dave Smith may vote Trump to stop Harris when he should vote third party. Don't reward duopoly. It's sellout behavior, in my opinion. Keep it up. Yeah, I never understood that. I never understood people that are a part of a third party that are still going to vote for the duopoly. What's the point of you being a part of a third party? Thank you, Louise. Voting for Jill on Tuesday. I'm in Virginia. Stand with Palestine. Protest G-side. Damn YouTube. Can't spell out G word. SMH. Thank you, Michael. Hi, Sabby. I'm from Newcastle, England. Well, welcome. I wonder, is that where they make Newcastle? Huh. Grace B, the laundry got ignored yet again. You know what, Grace? You can join the club. We join the club. We can be on the same team because one thing I do not like to do is laundry. And it's not even putting the clothes in the washing machine and then the dryer. It's the folding process afterwards, you know? I throw them in the dryer and in the wash and like all done. But then you have to sit down and fold them. And that's what I'm not a fan of. Thank you, Samad. Free Palestine. I love Palestine because Palestine loves me. Samad has been a member for 1 month. Better You says, LOL. I like that response. Very married. Yeah. That's what I call it. If you've been married for more than 5 years, I say very. Nate, exactly. Nothing said about Black people comments. Forget that fake outrage. Hashtag ADOS. Yeah. Something I noticed, man. Kinkle, yes, he did. The campaign wrote a huge letter dismissing him. Thank you. None of your business. Was this guy a Biden/Harris plant? I don't think so. Cause like I saw his comedy during Tom Brady's roast and it was the same style of comedy. So thank you, Cool Blue. Info I come across is that compared to 2020, Republicans are overperforming early vote. Shh, Cool Blue, stop giving away my stories. Stop giving it away. Shh. This is also applicable and as an example, swing states such as Pennsylvania and Nevada. This is true. Thank you, Cool Blue. Skylar says, according to a member from the Trump campaign, the speech from the comedian was vetted and they removed the joke referring to Harris as a C word and that the Puerto Rico joke wasn't in there. Thank you, Skylar, for letting me know. Sandal, thank you. George Lopez also roasted Latinos at a Harris rally. Right. But the pushback that you're going to receive from that is that George Lopez is Mexican. So it's kind of like, I can make fun of my family, but you can't make fun of my family. That's the pushback you're going to get from that. And thank you for this as well. But no one is talking about what George Lopez said. It's true, but they're going to tell you it's because George Lopez is Mexican. So it was like he was making fun of himself. Thank you, China. Hey, Sabby, the media is really blowing this out of proportion. George Lopez hinted that Mexicans steal and you hear nothing. Yeah, but again, like I said, people are going to say it's okay because he is Mexican. So he is picking on his own people. Thank you, French Coco. Dems can ignore JB's "you ain't black." So then MAGA can and will ignore this. Dems are desperate and sad as usual. Love you, Sabby. Hashtag free unfolded laundry. What's up? Free the clothes. Free the laundry. Okay, guys, if you haven't had a chance to do so, go ahead and smash that like button. Thank you. If you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share like a Care Bear. Oh, I think my thingy turned a bit. Yay. Hey, there we go. I don't know where the Care Bear thing come from, but it is what it is. Let's go ahead and get the comment on Rockfin. Thank you. Thank you for the $5 tip on Rockfin, Diane Morris. Thank you. I see there's a big conversation about laundry happening in the chat, and I get it. I understand. I'm here for you. Okay, now we're going to get into something a little bit comical. Speaking of rallies, now we move ourselves towards Kamala Harris rallies, right? So there was a rally in Texas with Beyonce, and there was a rally in Michigan with Michelle Obama. And Michelle Obama has let everybody know that she's mad. She's angry because the men don't want to come out and support the women behind abortion. The men don't want to come out and support Kamala Harris. So Michelle Obama is angry. Well, Michelle Obama, people don't owe Kamala Harris their votes. And even when you go to the Beyonce situation in Texas, similar thing. We'll start with Beyonce. We'll make our way to Michelle Obama. Beyonce shows up in Texas and tells everybody that she's here not as a performer. She is here as a mother. As a mother. Let's get into it.
I'm not here as a celebrity. I'm not here as a politician. I'm here as a mother. A mother who cares deeply about the world my children and all of our children live in. A world where we have the freedom to control our bodies. A world where we're not divided. Our past, our present, our future merge to meet us here.
So Beyonce, you know, I like some of Beyonce's songs, and I'm just going to kind of keep it at that because this is what I have to say. You are there as a mother. So as a mother, you know, hopefully you would care about those kids that are being killed in Palestine. As a mother, hopefully you would stand against the genocide of children. As a mother, hopefully you would push back against the state of Israel that is slaughtering those children as a mother. Beyonce was paid to be there. Like most of the celebrities that have been at these rallies, these people aren't showing up for free. And from what I read, a couple mil for her to come up there and speak for 4 minutes and then walk off the stage. Now, apparently this upset some people because from what I understand, some people thought that they were coming to see a Beyonce concert, that there was going to be a performance. They wanted a show. And that did not happen. Now, this guy here, who's a YouTuber, he talked about what happened at the rally. And I believe this is where he talks about the boos. So if you want to hear what happened, yes, there was booing at the rally. And yes, some people left the rally after Beyonce walked off the stage. So when you hear corporate media brag that there were 30,000 people there to see Kamala, no. There were 30,000 people there to see a Beyonce concert, not to see Kamala Harris. That's like me inviting you to an event and I'm going to be at the event, but I tell you, hey, the headliner is going to be Kendrick Lamar. I'm pretty sure the thousands of people that are showing up are there to see Kendrick Lamar. You know what I mean? It's just common sense. Listen to what he had to say.
Someone else would have already been there. It was fine. Beyonce. The hype was very clear and there for Beyonce. That's the reason why a lot of people are there. They're expecting a free Beyonce concert. Here's the kicker though. Beyonce was never scheduled to be there. It was all rumor based. Kamala never said Beyonce would be there. The Democrats never said she would be there. Beyonce never said she would be there. The only thing that the Democrats and Kamala did was say that Tina Knowles, Beyonce's mother, would be speaking. And that actually did happen. And people put 2 and 2 together like, okay, it's Houston, Beyonce's hometown, it's at a stadium. Beyonce's surely going to be there, especially given that Beyonce threw a whole concert for Hillary. So that's why people thought Beyonce was definitely going to be there. And they were right. I mean, she was. But for anybody upset that Beyonce didn't perform, personally, as a fan, I'm not upset because there was never any mention of a performance. Like, how am I supposed to be mad that Beyonce didn't perform when no one ever said she was performing to begin with? That's not right for me as a fan. It's not right for anyone to expect her to perform when she never said anything. It's not fair. And then for other people, like, well, why was she there to begin with? If you're not familiar with Beyonce and her family, they're from Houston. For the past 60 years, they've been in Houston. Whenever anything happens to Houston, from hurricanes to COVID, Beyonce's writing a check and sending it to Houston. They help out a ton. So it made sense why she was there. She did end up giving a 5-minute speech. There was no performance. She was in and out, and that was it. And like I said before, at the beginning of that pre-party, it felt like a Beyonce concert. That DJ was playing Beyonce non-stop, and it was lit. All the Beyonce fans were lit. It was a great time. And when Beyonce left that stage, so did a majority of her fans, and then everybody else started trickling out too. Kamala. Honestly, the hardest part about being there that entire day was when Kamala got on stage. I'm not.
Pause. So you see what's happening here, right? So again, that was corporate media trying to get you to believe that 30,000 people showed up to see Kamala Harris. Here's someone who was there. Sounds like they were there to see Beyonce.
I'm even trying to be funny. I'm not trying to be mean. Her voice is ear piercing. The cackle is too much. The speech, it was very like, look at this, y'all. It was just fluff. And it was sad to see so many people like really rally behind her. It's kind of bad. It was kind of funny seeing all the people boo at her and then people booing at the booing. It was so much drama when she got on stage. Literally, when Kamala got on stage, that's when all the drama ensued. And she kept saying all these lies. I remember at one point she was like, where's my Gen Z at? I love y'all. Y'all are the best. And I'm sitting here like, you just said they were all stupid.
What else do we know about this population, 18 through 24? They are stupid. That is why we put them in dormitories, and they have a resident assistant.
And people were acting like she didn't say that. It was when Kamala came on, people did start to leave. She really went hard on the abortion rights. She went hard on Trump hacking the courts. She went hard on, I mean, I wish there was a Trump counter on the screen. She said Trump so much. It really did show me that her entire campaign is rallying behind reproductive freedom and abortion. That's it. That's what this.
So everybody hear that? So that's a big part. And whether you agree with abortion or not, I've said this before, that is not, for most voters, that's not their number one issue. For most voters, the number one issue is the economy. Now, people were booing. Let's get to the boos. What was that all about?
Talking about, did people boo? Okay, there's been so much like controversy around this whole, were people booing? What were they booing at? There are people that were there, I saw on TikTok, talking about no one was booing. And I'm like, people were definitely booing. And then people were like, oh, people are only booing at the technical difficulties. No, that's not the case either, because we see all the hecklers that were actually there booing at Kamala. So yes, let's get into the 2 reasons why people were booing. 1, technical difficulties. So I'm gonna try to have some videos up here to display it well, but they had 2 screens up in the corners, a big screen behind the speaker, and then a screen on the other side of the stadium. In the middle of the floor, they had the media pit, which had the clear angle of whoever's speaking. Well, when the speakers started coming on, obviously like that tall middle thing was it was even blocking people on the floor, like you couldn't see who was speaking. And everyone's like, okay, they're gonna put the person on the big screen. They didn't do that. They weren't using any of the screens. Matter of fact, it was just, you just hear voices, like you might as well have been listening to a podcast. So you had a lot of people booing in the beginning, like, boo, we can't see. They were chanting, we can't see, turn screens on.
So that sucks, right? That there were screens there. And I guess people, you know, typically when you go to that type of event, if you're further away from the stage, whatever is happening on the stage, you would be able to see on the big screens. Listen, I've been to a lot of concerts in my day, and I'm usually not up front. So I am familiar with the screen. So it's kind of weird that people were there and they were not displaying what was happening on the stage on the screens. Yikes.
There were a lot of people booing at that throughout the entire night because the screen kept going off, or they'll cut it on when someone's leaving the stage. When Kamala hit the stage, they didn't cut that graphic on. So people were booing at the event staff, not Kamala, when she first got on, because you couldn't even see her. People were booing because they were mad. So you had that. And that was, like I said before, that was going on all night. So people were booing at just the staff and the general technical difficulties. Now, 2, were people booing at Kamala? Yes. There were hecklers all around, honestly. There was the Palestine people. There were people just like booing at her in general, that just didn't like her, that were there. Really sat there all day just to boo at her, which is crazy to me. But yeah, there were people that are booing at her throughout her whole speech. And
so that's important, I think, for people to hear, because that proves to you once again, I think a lot of people came there to see a Beyonce concert, and that is not what that turned out to be. Now, was it wrong for people to assume that there was going to be a concert? Well, you know, I guess if they were thinking about what happened with Meg Thee Stallion, when Meg Thee Stallion appeared at Kamala Harris's rally in Atlanta, she did perform. You know, she was, you know, all booty out and all. She was doing the Meg like she usually does. So maybe they assumed that. And then also, if I remember correctly, didn't Beyonce perform a concert when Hillary Clinton was running for president in 2016? And if that's the case, I think so. And if that's the case, that's probably why people assumed that that was going to happen. So that's one of the rallies that happened over the weekend. But then there was also the rally in Michigan with Michelle Obama. And I got some things to say about Michelle. Shell, we got to talk. Well, we have some things to say because Michelle Obama came out hot like somebody owed her something. Michelle Obama came out hot like somebody stole something from her and she wanted it back. And the reality is Michelle Obama isn't running for president. There were a number of times when people were asking you to run and you said you did not want to. But nobody owes their vote to Kamala Harris. And nobody is like, when I told you guys the energy with this campaign was going to die down once we got into October and got closer to the election, I'm proven right. And I stand by because I saw what a flop of Kamala has been before in 2020. I saw this before. I saw her speak in New Hampshire. I saw all the excitement around her in 2020 when she announced she was running then. And I watched all that excitement go right out the window. I saw all these things. I knew that Kamala Harris would find a way to mess this up for herself. She had one job. She needed to distance herself from Joe Biden. Kamala Harris didn't do that. Basically, what she showed everybody is that she's going to be just like Joe Biden. She couldn't even distance herself from Joe Biden when it came to Gaza. But Michelle Obama is here and wants you to believe that because Roe v. Wade was overturned, you are supposed to get behind Kamala Harris because of that issue, not thinking about the fact that not every woman and damn sure not every man agrees with Roe v. Wade being at the federal level. Let's get into it, fam.
That there are a lot of angry, disillusioned people out there upset with the slow pace of change. And I get it. It is reasonable to be frustrated. We all know we have a lot more work to do in this country. But to anyone out there thinking about sitting out this election or voting for Donald Trump or a third-party candidate in protest because you're fed up, let me warn you, your rage does not exist in a vacuum.
So let's go ahead and pause right there, shall we? Okay, first of all, Michelle Obama, you really like weeks too late. A lot of people that I've seen have already voted and have already voted third party or have already voted for Donald Trump. Now, how can you stand there and say, I understand that people are frustrated and there's a lot of work that needs to be done? First of all, she said, we have a lot of work to do. Who's we? Who's we? Last time I checked, Michelle Obama isn't a part of the Democratic Party. She's not a politician. What do you mean we? What are you talking about? So there's that. But if you acknowledge that there's a lot of work that needs to be done, then how can you sit there after that and shame people for not wanting to support the party that hasn't done the work? She came out mad. She came out hot. Come on, guys, let's keep it real. She came out hot. You know, it's like, read the room. Why are you yelling at the people at the rally? The people at the rally are there to see Kamala. Why are you yelling at them? Why? Somebody tell me. Does this make sense to you? Doesn't make sense to me.
If we don't get this election right, your wife, your daughter, your mother, we as women will become collateral damage to your rage. Prepared to look into the eyes of the women and children you love and tell them that you supported this assault on our safety? And to the women listening, we have every right to demand that the men in our lives do better by us.
Okay, well then maybe you should start with Obama, Michelle. Maybe you should start with the man in your life. The one who was running on codifying Roe v. Wade said it would be the first thing that he would do if he was elected. And then he got elected. And guess what he said? He's not going to do it. He tried to point fingers at Lieberman, even though at the end of the day, all Obama had to do was to end the filibuster. That's it. And we wouldn't be here. Even if Donald Trump would have won in 2016, we wouldn't be here. This wouldn't be an issue. So how can you stand up there and lecture men, other men, and lecture the women in the audience and tell them to lecture their men? Have you lectured yours, Michelle? Have you sat down and had these deep conversations with Barack? I know he's probably a pain in the ass and has a giant ass ego, but I just kind of feel like that's who you should be having that conversation with instead of coming out onto the stage and shaming everybody else and shaming the voters. And I've said this before, this gives me 2016 Hillary Clinton vibes. I am really tired of politicians shaming voters or friends of politicians shaming voters for not supporting their candidate. That didn't work out well for Hillary Clinton in 2016. And it doesn't seem to be working out well for Kamala either. You want to know the real reason why Michelle is mad? The real reason why Michelle is mad is because Kamala doesn't have the support that they wanted her to have. It's not just because of Roe v. Wade. It's because when you look at the internal polls, it is showing you that Kamala Harris don't have it. And they're not going to admit this to you. They're not going to come onto corporate media and say, yeah, it's looking really bad for us. They're not going to tell you that. Their job is to convince you it's looking good. If they tell you it's bad, we have no chance, you don't feel pressured to go out and vote. If they tell you it's already over, then you're like, well, hell, I might as well just sit my ass at home. But shaming the voters, you should have learned this from 2016, is not a good idea.
We have to use our voices to make these choices clear to the men that we love. Our lives are worth more than their anger and disappointment. And we are more than just baby-making vessels. And if you are a woman who lives in a household of men that don't listen to you or value your opinion, just remember that your vote is a private matter. Regardless of the political views of your partner, you get to choose. You get to use your judgment and cast your vote for yourself and the women in your life. Remember, women, standing up for what is best for us can make the difference in this election.
It's really interesting, you know, I just have to shake my head because I read Michelle Obama's book. And you know what I learned reading Michelle Obama's book? That Michelle Obama did not want Barack Obama to get into politics, mainly because of the experiences that she had when she was growing up. She said she was friends with Jesse Jackson's daughter, and she did not like politics because she saw what her friend had to go through. So it's interesting to me that you're saying that these women, their men need to listen to them, but Barack didn't listen to you because you didn't want him to go into electoral politics, but he decided to do it anyway because Barack Obama has that ego. So how can you sit up here and lecture the rest of us?
So let us use our voices in these final days to make it plain to the men in our lives that we need to stand not with Trump, but with us. We need them to vote for the only candidate in this race who will protect our lives. We need them to vote for Kamala Harris. Kamala, she will fight to restore our reproductive freedoms and defend our health. Kamala will fight for our access to life-saving emergency care and maternal care in every state. Kamala will veto any abortion ban or bill that restricts access to contraception or IVF. Kamala will expand access to birth control and abortion pills. And she will do all of this not because she's a woman, but because she's a decent human being.
A decent human being that locked up all those black men. A decent human being that locked up parents for truancy. That doesn't seem decent to me. But go ahead. I know you got to do your thing, Michelle. Go ahead. We know you got to do your propaganda.
She will do this because she cares about the lives of people other than herself. And that's really what this election is about, Michigan. This isn't just about what we have an obligation to say no to. It's about what we have the opportunity to say yes to. And we can elect someone who has the experience, the character, and the strength to look at all these challenges and still see a brighter day on the other side. Kamala Harris will see us, all of us, Kamala Harris will listen to us, all of us. She will protect our freedom. She'll stand up for all of our lives. She will have our backs for the folks trying to get ahead and those just trying to get by.
You know, she's making a lot of assumptions there about Kamala Harris. And I remember hearing the same type of rhetoric when Barack Obama was running for president. I'm almost done with my article. That should be done, hopefully, before Election Day. I'm almost done with this article I've been writing about why I would not support Kamala Harris. And part of it has to do with the Barack Obama vibes. And I will say this, I have seen this before, and I think some of you have as well. All of a sudden, this one person going to do all of this, all these promises. All of a sudden, there's no Congress involved. We don't need those guys. They're just going to do all these things. And I heard the same speech about protecting reproductive rights for women when Barack Obama was running for president. So now what Kamala Harris and Michelle Obama have done is they are focusing primarily now on abortion and attacking Donald Trump, when the number one issue for voters is the economy. Listen, fam, I don't know why Kamala's campaign decided that this is a good strategy. The polling is showing obviously that it's not. You are speaking to a select group of people by focusing only on this issue now. You started out talking about your plan, your economic plan. Somehow it went from that to let's just talk about Roe v. Wade. I don't know who came up with this. Like, this is just a disaster. Too late to change it now. I mean, the election is on Tuesday. So it's all over the place. This campaign is all over the place. This is stupid. It's not the number one issue. And this is not to say it should not be discussed. It should be discussed. But I feel like now it seems like she's only trying to focus on, let me get the suburban women and get them on this issue of Roe v. Wade. She's not winning the Muslim vote. So let's just push them aside. We're not going to try to call for a ceasefire. We're not going to agree to an arms embargo to Israel. Israel matters more than Muslim Americans in this country. To Kamala Harris. So we are going to stick with Israel, and we're going to just say goodbye to the Muslim voters, and we're going to try to go talk to white women in suburbia, and we're going to get them totally on the abortion issue. And people ask, why do you keep saying white women, Sabby? Because I'm going to keep it real with you. The reality is, in the Black community, particularly the Black church isn't so keen on this. It's just a reality. So she's trying to get, that's what she's trying to court. And she's trying to get white suburban women to make up for the loss of the Muslim voters, the Latino vote that she's lacking, and the Black vote where she's lacking behind her predecessors. She is counting on white women to come out and help her win this thing. Simply off of abortion, that's it. Forget about economics, she says.
And in doing so, she will usher in a new generation of American leadership and send the ugliness of Donald Trump and his politics back where it belongs, the past. But Michigan, she cannot do any of this alone. So I'm asking you one last time. Let us not just sit around and complain. Let's do something. If your brother or your son or boyfriend needs to hear your perspective, are you willing to talk to them? Are you willing to send a video of what I've just said? Are you willing to do something?
So wait a minute. So now there's this assumption that women are afraid to talk to their significant others about who they're going to support? What is happening here? Sounds like to me, Michelle Obama doesn't think that women are as strong as she says that they are. Or that we have minds of our own. Isn't that what she told you? Before, women are smart, we're capable, we're this, we can do everything. Except you can't talk to your own husband. You can't talk to your own boyfriend. This is not the 60s. This is not the 70s. Who is she talking to? We'll finish it up here.
If you have an aunt who's thinking about sitting this one out or voting for a third party, are you willing to have an uncomfortable conversation? Are you willing to do something?
No, you wouldn't have to have that conversation, Michelle, because here's the thing. Most of the people that I know so far already voted for Jill Stein or Cornel West. And this is the thing, is like, now it's like we got to say something about these people willing to vote third party. None of that would even be happening if the Democratic Party didn't move further to the right. None of that would be happening if Kamala Harris not trying to run a Republican-like campaign, okay? With Liz Cheney and promoting endorsements from Dick Cheney, the guy who shot his friend in the head. This is the problem. It is not the women who are at that rally. Obviously, they support Kamala. That's why they're there. It is not because women don't know how to talk to their boyfriends or their husbands. It is because Kamala Harris is running a whack-ass campaign. And I don't know if anybody else is going to put it to you as straightforward as me, but that's just how it is. How you go from talking about, this is my plan for the economy. And yeah, we had criticisms about certain parts of the plan where she kept changing things like the house tax credit, which is a down payment, but it's a tax credit, that type of thing. But you just totally stepped away from all that and just said, let's just focus on Roe v. Wade. Not realizing not even everybody in the Democratic Party agrees that that should be handled at the federal level. And not all Republican women are against, not all Republicans are against abortion either. But what I've been hearing from many people is that they don't feel like it should be handled at the federal level. They feel like it should be handled at the states. But solely trying to just zone in on this issue, I don't know.
If you have an extra hour or extra weekend, are you willing to knock on doors and talk to your neighbors? Are you willing to do something? Look, Michigan, we've just got 10 more days to make it happen. 10 more days to wave goodbye to the incompetence and hatred and division. 10 more days to welcome in a leader with the character and the heart and the strength worthy of the office she seeks and worthy of the country that we all love. Michigan, let's give Kamala everything we've got. Can we get this done?
Yeah, this is a doozy, because for me, it's just like, if Kamala's so worthy, why do you have to fight so hard? Why do you have to try this hard? This hard? Why? Don't you guys think it's a little bit weird? Like, why do you have to? No one voted for Kamala Harris in the 2024 Democratic primary. Not one person. You guys selected this chick who had no plan in the beginning for days, for weeks, finally came up with some type of agenda, was talking about economic plan. Then some genius in the campaign goes, let's just focus on white women and abortion. Michelle Obama has a lot of smoke, a lot of heat for people who don't want to support Kamala Harris. But she did not have that same smoke and heat for her own damn husband, who promised to codify Roe v. Wade.
The Freedom of Choice Act is not my highest legislative priority. I believe that women should have the right to choose. But I think that the most important thing we can do to tamp down some of the anger surrounding this issue is to focus on those areas that we can agree on, and that's where I'm going to focus. Okay. Jeff.
So, Michelle, did you have that conversation with your husband? Did you have that conversation with Barack, Michelle? That was right after he was elected. Boom, just like that. I changed my mind. We're not going to try to codify Roe v. Wade. Interesting how that happens. Let's go to some of the comments here in the chat. What's up, Tom? Whoopi Goldberg did a routine alongside Ted Danson with him wearing blackface. Now she's acting outrage over the Puerto Rican joke. You know, Whoopi all over the place. I told you about Whoopi. Thank you, Cool Blue. Additional info I came across is that the U.S. has enough citizens who do not feel the need for Barack or Michelle Obama to guide them on how to vote. Yeah. Brown Bunny. Hope everything is good with you, Miss Salvati. Hello, Brown Bunny. Thank you, Janice. Waiting for election day to vote Steinware, so the Purple Party less time to rig the machines. Mobama ignores the fact that her husband chose not to legislate Roe v. Wade when he had all three houses. That's right. Shout out to Regine for the super sticker. Thank you, Egg64. This shows Beyonce and Taylor Swift have enablers and not a good PR team. Because there's no way the teams did not know about all the genocide happening. Yeah, they know. Katrina says this dude's a grifter, but that crap Kamala and Beyonce pulled is easy to roast them for. For real, Dems deserve to be called out on it. Thank you, Michael. Free concert means they got what they paid for. That's a good one, Michael. Thank you, Welch's Grape. I'm not voting third party in protests. I'm just voting third party normally. There it is. Thank you, Maria. Tired of Dems telling us they don't want or need our support and then talking down to us when we walk away. I don't know how people still vote for red or blue. Well said, Maria. Thank you, Cool Blue. The Obamas and all other Kamala surrogates cannot make an argument for electing Harris and keeping the White House with the Democrats. Dems have nothing. Thank you, Frank. Abandoned Bombala. Thank you, Janice. They're using shame because they have nothing else. Thanks, Over the Top. Yes, Michelle. And what about RBG, who should have given up her Supreme Court seat when Obama was in office? This is another one. Go ahead and blame men. Pathetic. Thanks, David. Barack Book said how much he looked up to Reagan. Sorry. Yeah. Thank you, Zeneb. Great presentation today. Was super informative and appreciated it. So much packed into a presentation. Thanks, Zeneb. Yeah, if you guys haven't had a chance to see that, check out the presentation that I did at the Community Church of Boston. Thank you, Louise. Did I miss it? Has Kamala ever outlined how she would restore abortion rights in the state? She mentioned ending the filibuster, which, again, this is something they could do right now. Her and Biden could have done this right now. Thank you. I know myself. Michelle Obama came out like a hot mess, doubling down on what doesn't work, mixing jerk chicken and hot curry. Thank you, Zoe. A war criminal's wife thinks she has valid measure of decency. Now I have to laugh or else I'll feel insane. Thank you, Zeneb. The Dems aren't running in 65% of seats down ballot, leaving them in the hands of the GOP. Abandon the 50-state strategy. How are they combating anti-abortion laws again? And as it looks right now, Republicans are on the path to win the Senate. Crazy stuff. Thank you, Cool Blue. Remember when a message from the 2024 Democrats and Kamala Harris campaign was joy? How's that going lately? Thank you, New York Varsity. Obamas are everywhere. The Clintons are quiet. Don't tempt her. Don't tempt Hillary. Thank you, Brawny. Kamala is moving so far to the right that she's allowed Trump to camp out in the center. By the way, Obama did nothing for a Black community. Unmoved. Thanks, Well Connected. Sab, her husband is from Brooklyn Clue. Therefore, she is ... Therefore, the settlements will continue. There you go. Thank you, New York Varsity. And Sabby. Obama did not even need to tackle the filibuster. He had the votes. Well, he tried to blame Lieberman as the reason why he would not have the votes, because Lieberman was an independent at that time. I wonder whatever happened to that guy. Thank you, JB. Sabby and Max, I love it. It's like a sitcom. That was a fun interview, huh? Thank you, Lonzo. Wish you was on the ticket, Sabby. Oh, God, no. I don't think that's my space, you know. I do not see myself as a politician. Can we go to the comment on Rockfin, Eric? Hey, hey, hey. Thank you. And we can go to part 2 of Tight VNC. Thank you, Roger, for the tip on Rockfin. Don't worry, Michelle. GOP won't have a net gain of 10 in the Senate to pass a national abortion ban. So you can calm yourself. Ain't nothing getting done in federal government, people. The fight is in the states, which is where abortion will be fought. Notice how Dems don't even talk about gun regulation anymore. It used to be gun regulation and abortion. Black church always looked the other way on abortion while supporting Dems. Here it is. Okay. If you haven't had a chance to do so, go ahead and smash that like button. Thank you. And we're moving on to our next story here, ladies and gentlemen. Well, folks, I've seen it all, and I've seen some strange things in my day, but nothing like this one. It appears that a group of Muslim voters have decided to endorse Donald Trump in Michigan. If this could not be even more of a blow towards the Kamala Harris campaign, I don't know what could be. But the fact that it happened on stage at a Trump rally in Michigan is very telling. And I have a couple of things to say about this. I don't understand why this is happening. I can guess, but I just don't get it. But it happened. And here we are. Let's dive in.
I'm going to ask if I could, all of my friends to come up from the Arab and Muslim part of Michigan. And I'd like to give them a big hand because they're going to vote for us and help us win.
Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon, Michiganders. As the president said, we just had a positive meeting with President Trump. We as Muslims stand with President Trump because he promises peace. He promises peace, not war.
So let's just go ahead and pause there for just a second. So this is not obviously the entire Muslim voting community, but this particular group here, I'm going to get into a little bit more details in the article that is supporting Donald Trump. Just FYI, like this isn't all of the Muslim voting community. There are some that are supporting Jill Stein, some supporting Cornel West, and there are a few also from Uncommitted that are supporting Kamala. You know, some of those leaders have said that. But the reality is, when it comes to the Arab American vote, Donald Trump is ahead of Kamala Harris with that vote. Now, Arab American doesn't necessarily mean they are Muslim. You can be Arab American and you can be Christian or, non-religious at all. So just keep that in mind. The Muslim voters in particular, though, Kamala Harris is struggling there. That goes back to that CARE poll that we continue to see over and over again. There is a significant amount of Muslim voters that are supporting Jill Stein. So I don't want you to see this and assume, oh, no, they all changed their mind and decided to support Trump. No, there's just different, fractions of that community that are going different ways.
We are supporting Donald Trump because he promised to end war in the Middle East and Ukraine.
I don't understand this because I have heard Donald Trump repeatedly say that he is, just wants them to go in there and finish it all. So there's that. I also don't understand it. Think about some of the comments that Donald Trump has made about Palestinian people. There's that. And then there was also the Muslim ban. So I don't get this at all. There's one piece of tidbit that I've been told is that apparently Donald Trump's daughter, Tiffany Trump, it appears, I guess, like her father-in-law has somehow made inroads into Muslim voting communities in Michigan. and has convinced them that Trump would be better for them. Now, I believe he's Lebanese American. I don't understand how this is happening, but apparently some are deciding to go in that direction. So again, when you think about, and I'm talking about recently, the rhetoric that Donald Trump has said, like, oh, saying Kamala, she's like a Palestinian, which was BS, obviously. But the rhetoric that he said about them, and then also don't forget the pro-Palestinian protesters, the rhetoric he had about them. So I'm like, why would you endorse Donald Trump? I don't know, guys.
The bloodshed has to stop all over the world. And I think this man can make that happen. I personally believe that God saved his life twice for a reason.
Oh boy.
I believe personally that God has saved his life for a reason, which is to save the lives of others.
Oh boy.
We support Donald J. Trump for his commitment to promoting family values and protecting our children's well-being, especially when it comes to curriculums and schools.
I guess I just like, what the hell? And you guys let me know, what the hell did Trump say to them? Like what? I don't, granted, the genocide is happening under the Biden-Harris administration. Totally get that. They shouldn't support Kamala at all. But I also don't understand what makes them think that Trump would, why? I'm lost. I'm really lost. Cup of Joy said curriculums in schools. I don't know, man. I don't know. Jesus.
We as Muslims support this man because we believe that he will be a president for all Americans, embracing every race, color, and religion. We are with President Trump because we want a strong border. And we agree with President Trump that anyone who wants to come to this country is welcome, but he has to do that through legal pathway.
There it is. Ding, 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 ding. I believe that's part of the reason why the border issue, immigration. And I've said this before, for whatever reason, there seems to be this assumption that if someone immigrated to this country, that they would definitely be understanding of those who have come here and they're asking for asylum, those who cross the border illegally. That's not necessarily the case. And I've had this conversation before with friends of mine that did immigrate to this country, and they'll tell you, most of them will say they don't like what's happening at the border. And they said they don't feel like it's fair because they did everything the right way. And the migrant community that's coming in doesn't have to do that. And they're getting housing and they're getting debit cards and all those types of things. So it almost kind of seems like in this particular endorsement, notice how he brought up the border, the issue of immigration. So that is something that I guess that particular group on the stage feels very strongly about. Now, one of them is a mayor of Dearborn Heights. I'll get to that article in just a second, and you'll see, again, it says something if a mayor comes forward and endorses as well.
We are with President Trump because we want a strong economy. Don't you want that? We are with President Trump to make America great again through peace and justice for all. Lastly, Michiganders, I have 2 predictions for you for the next 6 months. Are you ready? Number 1, the Detroit Lions will win the Super Bowl.
You can keep that one. You can keep that one, hun. I don't think the Detroit Lions are winning the Super Bowl. I've been watching, I'm looking, but I don't think that's going to happen. You can continue with that.
Ready for the second prediction? I can't hear you. Are you ready? The second prediction is Donald J. Trump will be the 47th president of the United States of America.
Now that actually could happen.
Okay. All right. God bless you all and God bless America.
Wow. 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 I just keep thinking about how the hell Kamala Harris blew this. It's driving me crazy because the number of times that Arab American voters were asking for her to sit down and meet with them, recently, the number of times they were like, we want a ceasefire, we want an arms embargo. How the hell did Kamala Harris let this sneak by? You know what? Donald Trump is out here playing chess. And if you're not good at playing chess, you're going to lose. Because think about it. He did something that I think Democrats did not expect him to do. He went and he sat down with Arab Americans in Michigan. And Kamala Harris has continued to say that, well, be quiet or you're going to get Trump. Remember that? I'm speaking. Sit down or you're going to get Trump. Right? Remember that? So remember her response and look at what he did. It's like we're watching chess like in real time. Like, how could you have let this sneak by in Michigan? The number of times that Kamala has been in Michigan. Hell, Jill Stein, I think Jill has been in Michigan more than Kamala has. I'm not even trying to front. I think Jill has been in Michigan since day one after October 7th. She's been there more than Kamala Harris has. They know her. See how they shaking hands? Everybody see what's happening here?
USA.
So why is this happening? Amin from MSNBC, he talked about this too. He wrote an article about it. And he was just like people need to see this because this is not a joke. Why is Trump gaining ground with Arab American voters? Again, this is from Iman. Check this out, fam. With Election Day just days away, Donald Trump is making surprising gains with an unexpected group of voters, Arab and Muslim Americans. According to a new poll, the Arab News Research and Study Unit, the former president is now edging out Vice President Kamala Harris among Arab American voters, 43% to 41%. I don't understand how Kamala's campaign really could have blown this. Muslim voters were more willing to talk to Kamala Harris first, not Donald Trump. Hey, you brush these people off. There could be a realignment happening with Muslim voters. Some of these voters may never go back to the Democratic Party. I'm just keeping it real talk. Some of them may never go back. And how do you make this make sense, fam? How do you lose another demographic? How do you do this? It goes on to say here, while that number is within the poll's margin of error, it comes as Trump scored an endorsement from Bill Bozzi, the mayor of Dearborn Heights, Michigan. Bozzi represents a city with a large Arab population and joined Trump at a rally in the battleground state this weekend. You might be asking yourself, how did we get to the point where some Arab American and Muslim voters are backing this man? All this in stark contrast to overwhelming support to Biden enjoyed from the same community back in 2020. Is also pretty surprising when considered Trump's record with Muslim and Americans Arab Americans. During his first term, Trump banned immigration from several Muslim majority countries. He even made comments about Islam hating America. He repeatedly attacked Arab and Muslim lawmakers like Representative Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib. And throughout his first campaign, Trump frequently repeated the false claim that he saw thousands of New Jersey Muslims celebrating the 9/11 attacks. If Trump is successful in this election and finds himself back in the White House in January, we have a pretty clear picture of how he'd handle the war in the Middle East, which he might inherit. During his first, he would inherit it, definitely. During his first administration, he defied global calls and moved the U.S. embassy in Israel to Jerusalem. Trump also recognized Israel's annexation of the Golan Heights. More recently, he said Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was doing a good job and claimed that Biden was holding him back. Trump also promised to deport pro-Palestinian protesters, all while using Palestinian as a slur. How does this happen? So listen to this. This is coming from Shadi Hamid, a columnist for The Washington Post. In my conversations with Arab and Muslims across the country, the mood has become dark and despairing. They see how the Democratic Party has ignored the preferences of its own members, 77% of whom believe the U.S. should not send weapons to Israel. Leading Democrats acknowledge the devastation inflicted on Gaza, but in the same breath appear unwilling to do anything about it. Although Kamala Harris has been more effective at expressing empathy for Palestinian civilians, she also signaled she will not break with the Biden administration policy on Israel and Gaza. So it just, And again, don't think that's everybody, every Muslim voter and Arab American voter in Michigan. It's not. But that group there from Dearborn Heights, they have endorsed Trump. It's clear to many Arab American and Muslim voters that the former president's newfound love for the community isn't genuine. So, it's not like everybody is buying this. But holy smokes, holy hell, like how do you mess that up? How do you mess that up? And also, guys, I told you at the beginning of the year, 2024 was going to be wild, but this was not what I envisioned. This is insane. It just everything from Biden, like not having a real primary with the people running against them, Biden dropping out of the race, Kamala getting into the race, having no policy for weeks, not being able to shift on Israel, Trump, slowly climbing up in the polls and then kind of just taking off, and Muslim voters endorsing Donald Trump. This is a crazy year. Crazy. Let's go to some of the comments here. Thank you, Courtney. One thing that rally proved that Kamala and Beyonce have in common, nobody really wants to hear them speak. Right? People were like, we came here for a show, People were like, if you like it, then you should have put a ring on it. Thank you, none of your business. Isn't T's daughter married to an Arab new grand? I think they said that her father-in-law is Lebanese American. Thank you, Cool Blue. I was born in Dearborn and am in this area of Michigan. Biden lost in the primary to uncommitted in the city. Plus, Hamtramck, pronounced Hamtramck. Oh, okay. Yeah. Thank you, DJ Q. Sabby, Palestinian American here, and those people are doing it out of spite to the Dems. They hate the Democrats so much they don't care. Interesting. Thank you, DJ Q. Idris, it is the transgender issue. That is curriculum in schools. Also, he had no new wars. Interesting. Zeneb, it's class 2. These are wealthy Muslims, just like some of the ones that are endorsing Kamala. Interesting. Thanks, DJ. Sabby, I have talked to these people. They are just saying border because they really want to stick it to the Dems in hope that Trump will give peace. Well, thank you for letting us know that, DJ Q. DJ Q. Crazy stuff, DJ. Crazy, though. Samad, some Muslims and or Arabs have dual citizenship. They can benefit from normalization deals. This could easily be Arab/Muslims bureaucrats. My 2 cents. Thanks, Cool Blue. The two-party vote often combines for 97% to 99%, leaving 1% to 3% for all candidates outside the two major parties. Arab American population in Bellwether, Michigan want to deny the Dems and flip the state red. This is going to be interesting, folks. Very interesting. Thank you, Idris. Go Lions. We will win the Super Bowl. We are 6-1. Yeah, I remember this, Idris, and no shade, but there have been a number of times where I've seen the Lions have a great season, and for whatever reason, when they get into the playoffs or the Super Bowl, they choke. I'm betting another choke. But you know what? I really can't say anything. My Patriots suck now. They suck. Thank you, Over the Top. Yes, Trump is playing chess with his right hand and shooting himself in the foot with his left. Thank you, Barron. Trump also said that he's not in favor of war with Iran or regime change in Iran. Interesting. I thought he said he wanted to blow up all their nuclear. I thought that's what he said. He wanted to blow up their nuclear weapons. Thought he said that. Thank you, Hussein. As an Arab and Muslim, I voted for Claudia de la Cruz. Sick of us being dehumanized and overlooked politically. I do predict a GOP sweep next week. Oh, hold on, Hussein. We'll get into that in the next combo. Thank you, David. Kamala is unmoving on Gaza, and the Dems have outright rejected Arabs and Muslims. It's post 9/11 sentiment all over again, but I'd argue more overt. Yeah, I agree. Daha? Many Muslims are socially conservative, do not like what is being taught in public schools around LGBTQ+. Could be why Republicans support. We can talk about this on Call-In tonight. That's interesting. I guess I didn't think about that. Thank you, Only. Did Trump promise a ceasefire? I don't remember him saying that, to be honest. I don't know what he said to them in a private conversation, but I don't remember him saying that. And thank you, Cool Blue. Dearborn Heights, and Hamtramck are in Wayne County, Michigan. One way for Dems to lose Michigan is for Dems not to win the county by a minimum plus 35 points. Biden won it by plus 38. The 2024 Dems will likely fail to reach. Interesting. Thank you. These bitches want Nikes. Can you? I love the name. I'm sorry. I'll tell you why it's happening. I think some people would rather have an honest buffoon than a cunning liar. Interesting. And thank you, Cool Blue. Detroit Lions is, if I am correct, one of 3 NFL teams which has not yet reached the Super Bowl. Has not won one, I believe so. Thank you. Cool Blue is all about the stats. Let's get the comment on Rumble. Yeah. Thank you, Skip. Remember how kings married other families to expand their country and assure peace with his adversaries? What choice do they have when the king is really killing them? It's an interesting point there, Skip. Interesting point. All right. Smash that like button, guys. If you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share. And we're moving on, folks, to my favorite story of the night. I've been waiting for this one because it's all about data. I love me some damn data. Love it. Love it. We're getting to the final polls, ladies and gentlemen. If you'll notice, the chalkboard behind me says shock polls because we're getting to that point. Again, the election is next Tuesday, so let's go ahead and dive in. First and foremost, let's talk about the popular vote. Something has changed there. Now, if you'll notice, since Kamala Harris announced that she was running, she's been in the lead for the popular vote. And I told you guys before that that is not what determines the election. It's the Electoral College. But now something has changed. It appears that now Donald Trump may be on track to win the popular vote. This hasn't happened since George W. Bush's run for re-election. So it's been a while. He didn't win the popular vote in 2016, and he didn't win in 2020 either. But now it appears it could be heading in that direction. I've been looking at these polls the past couple of days, and then I saw this video here on CNN. Even they are going to admit he may win the popular vote. Listen to this.
Trump may finally get his great white whale. Harris versus Trump national margin. You mentioned that New York Times poll, a tie. That's actually right in the middle of the spectrum when we're talking about recent polling data. You don't have to look very far to find Donald Trump ahead nationally. He was up by 2 points in the CNBC poll, up by 3 in the Wall Street Journal poll. Very close races within the margin of error. But then the same thing on the other side, right? You have Harris up by 3 points according to Ipsos. The Say 24 YouGov poll, that's a bunch of academics, also has Harris up by 3. But the bottom line is, with the popular vote, which we really haven't focused upon, a very, very tight race, John. Fact is, Donald Trump is very much in a position he could win the popular vote, which, of course, is something he would absolutely love to do.
And would be something very different than we have seen compared to last time and the polling compared to last time.
Exactly right. So I went back through the time machine, all right? I went back through the time machine to see where were the past 2 races at this point in the campaign. Look, Harris in the average poll right now is up by 1. Well within the margin of error. You go back 4 years ago, Joe Biden was well ahead of Donald Trump in the national popular vote polls. He was up by 9. Even Hillary Clinton was up by 6 points. So now Donald Trump's in a position he really hasn't been before at this point in the campaign, where he could truly compete, and we can truly say that the popular vote at this point is way too close to call. Of course, this is only going...
Pause here for a second. Just a reminder, folks, Hillary Clinton was up plus 6 points in the popular vote. She won the popular vote, but she still lost the election.
Back 8 years. I wanted to jump even further back in my time machine to get an understanding. Hey, I haven't heard about a Republican potentially winning the popular vote in a while. And it turns out a Republican winning the popular vote, it hasn't happened since 2004 in George W. Bush defeating John Kerry. And that's only the one time that it has happened. In fact, you have to go all the way back to 1988 to find another one, when it was George W. Bush's father, George H.W. Bush, winning the popular vote over Michael Dukakis. So the fact that the polls right now are so close, John, the fact that Donald Trump has a legitimate shot of winning the popular vote is something I think a lot of folks, including in my line of work, really didn't think could possibly happen when Donald Trump was running last time around. He could make history, not just for Donald Trump, but for a Republican candidate as well.
Now,
Okay, folks. So this is definitely sounding an alarm. And I want to explain to you what that means about that popular vote before we get into some of these other polls. What that means, if Donald Trump is on track to possibly win the popular vote, which he has not done before, that would imply that Donald Trump has gained ground with voters in blue states. Now, that doesn't mean these states are going to flip red necessarily. But think about that for a second. That means in 2 of them in particular, New York and California, where Donald Trump is gaining more votes in those states. Look at the Madison Square Garden rally. It's very telling. Like, I don't know what to say other than the fact that it is very obvious that whatever Trump's team is doing, it is working in his favor. Now, we already talked about the Latino comments at the MAGA rally in Madison Square Garden. Even I don't think that's going to hurt Donald Trump the way that liberal media would want you to think. How do you think about this? He didn't win the popular vote in 2016. He won in 2016. He didn't win the popular vote in 2020. He lost in 2020. And now he's on track to possibly win the popular vote. Let's go a little bit deeper. Again, we're talking about shock polls. part of the problem is that liberal media made an assumption about early voting. The assumption that they made is that, oh, there's a surge in early voting. It must be Democrats. Apparently, that wasn't necessarily the case. This was reported a couple of days ago. It says more Republicans are voting early, helping break records, nearly 19 million ballots cast so far. So as you can see here, it says the early turnout is breaking records in swing states such as Georgia and North Carolina. The GOP hopes that this surge of early votes will fix a mechanical problem that some in the party blame for 2020. So we can't get into too much of that, right? Because you know how YouTube can be. But what has basically happened here, which I don't think the Democratic Party had this on their bingo card, is that the Republicans this time around seem to have been advised to come out and vote early. Now, in the past, it's been the Democrats that did that. Democrats were the ones more likely to vote early or by mail-in ballot in 2020 or 2016. And this time we saw a shift. And I don't think that this is something that Democrat strategists were prepared for. I think they just expected the Republican Party to repeat the usual pattern that they are used to. And then there's this, because I want to get into this discussion here on ABC News as well. And we're going to tear these polls apart. We're going to tear these polls up. We're going to dive into some data because look at this. This was on ABC.
7 states that are almost certainly going to determine the presidency. Things close as ever, and we're seeing a very slight Trump edge in several of the battleground states. Kamala Harris's numbers have gone down just a little bit. The 7 states that are almost certainly going to determine the presidency. Things close as ever, and we're seeing a very slight Trump edge in several of the battleground states.
Pause. Everybody take a look at this. Pennsylvania, Trump is up 0.3. North Carolina up 1.3. Georgia up 1.6. Arizona up 1.9. Nevada up 0.2. Even in Wisconsin, although I'm going to debunk that when we get to our little 270 to win. And Harris is up in Michigan by 0.5. This is not, if you're part of the Kamala Harris campaign, this is not good. This isn't good. We're not going to see any more. I don't think there's going to be any more polls. The election is literally next week. So that's why the panic. And let me say something else here as well. Kamala Harris's campaign manager was on MSNBC, and she said that what they see internally, it's looking good, and they feel that they can win this thing. If that were true, they would not be releasing attack ads against Jill Stein, third-party candidate who a lot of people probably didn't even know was running until you guys released those damn ads. So there's that. If that were true, why the state of panic? If that were true, why do you need celebrities to come out at every single event to hype up Kamala Harris? I don't believe that it's true. And I have the data to show you why I don't believe that it is true. We're going to start with North Carolina. North Carolina is very telling, folks. When we look at early voting here, what you can see is that so far in North Carolina, early voting, there's been over 3.1 million mail-in and early in-person votes cast. But look at this. The registered Republicans, they have edged out the Democrats in North Carolina with this category. 34% registered Republicans, 33% registered Democrats. Now, the gray area that's 33%, that is other. Now, they don't break down what other means. But if I were to assume, I'm assuming independent or third party, both of those together, I'm assuming that's what that is, right? Now, one of the mistakes that they make, and I don't know why they did this, they include Jill Stein and they put an I as independent. I don't want people to get confused and assume that, okay, Jill Stein is gray, she's an independent. I don't want you to think that when you see this gray bar here, that 33% is Jill Stein voters or etc. You don't know that, right? Because that is a mixture. That could be independent, registered independents, but that doesn't mean that they voted for Jill Stein. So I have to put that out there because people will see that and get confused. Those people are also third party voters, independent. Some independents vote Republican, some independents vote Democrat. So I'm not sure why they did that way. And then if we look at this part here in North Carolina, mail-in ballots requested, over 2.7 million. You will see the Republicans have also edged out the Democrats, 34% compared to 33%. And then there's 33% that is independent/other, right? So what we are seeing is that the Democratic Party made an error in judgment. They underestimated the Republican early voting turnout. Something else about North Carolina that I think is pretty shocking, because corporate media isn't showing you this. Kamala Harris's campaign is pulling out of media buying in North Carolina. As someone who lived in, this is me, by the way, someone who lived in North Carolina, I can tell you the cities listed below are more likely to be blue. This probably means that her campaign doesn't see a viable path in North Carolina. Now, what is this all about? Check this out. Kamala Harris Media Buying and Analytics is revising her broadcast flight from October 29th through November 5th in the contest for U.S. presidential. So far, we've seen over 1.7 million removed from Charlotte, Greensboro, Greenville, New Bern, Norfolk, Raleigh, and Wilmington markets. You can see it here. These are all the markets that they're referring to here. And again, as someone who, I lived in North Carolina, I'm here to tell you, these are particularly the blue areas. For example, Charlotte went to Biden. Raleigh went to Biden. Greensboro went to Biden in 2020. These are the areas that are more likely to be blue. So if Kamala Harris's campaign is doing so well in North Carolina, why would Kamala Harris pull out $1.7 million from the blue cities in that area? Make it make sense. Now, some people pushed back on me and they said, well, maybe it's because she's doing well, so they don't need to advertise anymore. Honey, the polls show it's not that way. And number two, that's typically not how it works. Usually when you start to see a candidate start to pull money back in certain areas, it's because they don't see a viable path. We've even seen this in primary races as well. So Kamala Harris, they've seen internal information that is showing that they don't have a viable path there in North Carolina. That's typically how it works. You're not going to continue spending money in a market where you have no chance of movement, right? $1.7 million. North Carolina, which I had predicted would be a problem for Kamala Harris. And now let's get into a little bit of data. North Carolina. I want to show you something else. In 2020, North Carolina was close between Biden and Trump. See if I make it a little bit bigger for you guys. There we go. It was close between Biden and Trump. Trump had 49.9%. Biden had 48.6%. Trump won North Carolina. So you can see this state was close between Trump and Biden, but Trump still was able to pull it out. Based on what I'm seeing with the numbers right now, Donald Trump is polling higher than he was last time. So the chances that Donald Trump does not win North Carolina, to me, I think are not likely. I think that Donald Trump is going to win North Carolina unless something happens on election day and a surge of Kamala Harris supporters come out to vote in North Carolina. But I just don't see that happening. I think North Carolina, once again, is going to go to Donald Trump. There's also the issue with the Hurricane Helene, where there are a number of people in North Carolina that are not happy about the way the Biden-Harris administration handled that issue, right? there are blue pockets in North Carolina, which I just showed you. But what people tend to forget is that North Carolina is a big state. And there are a lot of rural areas in North Carolina as well. And people tend to underestimate the voters in those rural areas that are going to come out and are going to support the Republican Party. This needs to be said. North Carolina is not just Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill, Charlotte. Okay. And just like Massachusetts is not just Boston. We got to talk about these things. Now we're going to move into the national polls. We're going to do two things. I'm going to show you one that leans a little bit more conservative, and then we're going to see a poll that leans a little bit more to the left. So we're going to start with Real Clear Politics national poll here. And what you'll see in the national race, they're showing you right now that Donald Trump has edged up ahead of Kamala Harris at 48.4%. And Kamala Harris has 48%. He has a plus 0.4 spread. That's just the national poll. Doesn't determine the presidency, but that is a sign, right? Because remember, Donald Trump was not ahead in the national polls in 2020. He was not ahead in the national polls in 2016. So this is very telling. And then I want to just take a look at this graph here to show you how this has changed over time. And sorry if I get excited about this, guys. I'm kind of nerdy about this kind of stuff. But what you will see here, when Biden drops out of the race, right, there was this big gap between Biden and Trump. And people are like, what the heck is going to happen? Kamala Harris comes in, and then you'll see that Trump was in the lead. However, once it got out there more about Kamala around August 3rd, this is when Kamala Harris's campaign takes off. You see her lead growing and growing and growing. And she really took off here. Going into September, it was all about coconuts and all this jazz, right? We get up here to the tippity top at one point. It was 49.4% against Trump's 47.4%. I'm trying to see when it was the highest. At one point, she was 5 points in the lead ahead of Donald Trump, right? So, but what you're seeing is that as we begin to get closer to the day of the election, this is where things start to collapse. Now, if you're looking at the blue line, I want you to shift your eyes to the red line, which is Donald Trump for a second. Donald Trump is starting to take off after October 7th. You will see coming up here, boom, and he just takes off. Then he meets her head to head. And he is pulling ahead right about here. So you will see once again that once people started to hear Kamala Harris, once they started to see her more, it seems like people became less interested in her, right? Once Kamala Harris pulled away from talking about economics and started focusing on women, you're a woman, I'm a woman, let's focus on women, get the women out there. The disrespect towards Black men, which came from Obama, but you know, she didn't push back on it. So there's that. And then there are also the I'm speaking moments, her inability to engage in a respectful way with the Palestinian Americans in this country, a number of things that happened during that time. Donald Trump takes off, and the next thing you know, boom, they're head to head. I warned people that this would happen. Kamala Harris was never a strong candidate. Now, that will be RCP. RCP is a little bit more conservative. So now we're also going to look at the New York Times, which leans more left. And I think you're going to see similarities here. And this is to prove a point. Even in the New York Times poll, what you'll see is when we get to the national poll, they still have Kamala Harris at 49 and Trump at 48. But again, remember, it is more left leaning, but still, it shouldn't even be this close. Because again, if you go back, you'll see that how the hell did it get to be this close, right? So something there to keep in mind. National poll, New York Times. And then am I ready to get to the states? Yeah, I'm ready to get to the states. Now let's get to the swing states. Still New York Times, okay? Leans left. Wisconsin, we can see they're even here, right? New York Times is calling it even. How did that happen? Kamala Harris was ahead of Donald Trump in Wisconsin. He has met up with her there. If we look at Nevada, we will see a similarity. Kamala Harris was ahead of Donald Trump. He has met her there. They are even in the New York Times poll. North Carolina, they're calling it even. I'm not. I'm calling Trump winning North Carolina. It just is what it is. Again, the big teller about North Carolina is her pulling out the ad money. That is a big sign. Again, they're not going to tell you this on corporate media. So there's that. Pennsylvania, Trump has pulled ahead in Pennsylvania, 49-48. But all you can see, very tight, right? But I don't think it really is this tight. That's what I'm trying to tell you. I think there's a reason why they've been heavily attacking Jill Stein and publishing ads against her. So there's that. And I think there's a reason why she pulled out some of these ads in North Carolina. Michigan, Kamala 49, Trump 48. He met up with her in Michigan, right? They're giving the edge to Kamala there. Georgia, Trump 50%, Kamala 47%. Arizona, Trump 50%, Kamala 47%. So the point that I'm trying to make is this. It was not this way in September, but as we go along, you will see that it is. Now we're going to go back to RCP, which again leans a little bit more right. And we're going to dive into Arizona. This is very telling as well. When we look at Arizona with RCP, we can see that Donald Trump has plus 2.2, 49.6 versus 47.4. We can see that there were gains here. At one point, they were tied in Arizona. And as you can see, Trump just kind of took off once October arrived. We can go into other ones as well. And you'll see, let me come up here for a second because they also do this day. I like this when they do this day in history. Arizona, this day in history, what it's showing you is that in 2016, Hillary Clinton was plus 1.5 and Kamala's not plus 1.5. What that also tells you is that it seems like they overpolled with Hillary Clinton. The polls were exaggerated with Hillary Clinton because plus 1.5, she did not win Arizona. So there's that. Now, let's go on. October 2020, it was a tie. There was a tie. You can see here they have that Trump had took the lead in Arizona. We can go on. Nevada, you will see similar situation where they have Trump here as plus 0.5, 48.3 to 47.8. When we look at this day in history, Hillary Clinton had plus 1.7. Joe Biden had plus 4.0. Both of them won Nevada. So this is what I mean when I say Kamala Harris is behind. It's not just with the demographics. When we look at the numbers, we can see it for ourselves, right? Also think that too, they also may have had exaggeration with Biden and Clinton, but the reality is Biden and Clinton won Nevada. Wisconsin is another one that people keep ringing their heads about. They have Donald Trump here plus 0.6. Donald Trump 48.4 to Harris 47.8. Hillary Clinton had plus 6.5. Biden had plus 6.7. Now, here's a perfect example why I say they over-exaggerated. Hillary Clinton had plus 6.5 for Wisconsin. Hillary Clinton lost Wisconsin. So it seems like, again, this was during that time when they were undersampling Trump voters. Now, the pollsters say they've adjusted for that, but I'm wondering how much did they adjust for that, right? Because had they adjusted for that back then, we would have seen better numbers. And I think a lot of people would have known ahead of time, look, it doesn't look like Hillary's going to be able to win the blue wall. So there's that. Wisconsin. Again, with Wisconsin, remember, Kamala Harris was way in the lead. She was ahead of him. She was ahead. He met up with her and then, boom, pulled ahead. Like, there's just no coming back from this, in my opinion, but we'll see. Michigan, we can see also Kamala Harris here. They have her at plus 0.5. She has 48.2. Trump has 47.7. Again, this was a state she was ahead of Trump. I don't understand. See how far ahead she was? And then bam, met up right there. This is crazy. This is crazy. So that's Michigan. As we can see, let's go back to this day in history. October 29th, Hillary Clinton was plus 7.0. Again, this is how you know that they over-exaggerated for Hillary because she lost Michigan. Don't forget about that. Even with Biden, plus 8.2, Biden won Michigan, but it was close. So we have to remember that. Pennsylvania. Okay, this is the one that's giving a lot of people headache. RCP has Trump at 48.1, Harris at 47.5, Trump 0.6 is the spread there. They have him in the lead. Pennsylvania was another one where at one point Kamala Harris was ahead of Donald Trump, but he caught up with her. RCP has him in the lead for Pennsylvania. Hillary Clinton's another one. They had her at a plus 5.0. They had Biden at plus 4.3. Again, over-exaggerated. Clinton lost Pennsylvania. Biden won Pennsylvania, but at the same time, not by as much as they were predicted to win it, right? Now we're moving on to North Carolina, which I just showed you again on the New York Times poll. They have Donald Trump at plus 1.0, 48.5, Harris 47.5. North Carolina is another one where this one I said from day one was going to be tough for Kamala Harris. RCP never had her in the lead in North Carolina. So keep that in mind. Clinton was plus 3, Biden was plus 0.6. Neither of them won North Carolina. We pivot on to the final swing state, which is Georgia. Georgia. They have Trump at plus 2.4, 49.3 compared to 46.9. So what we can see is that on this day, Biden was plus 0.4 in 2020, and Trump was plus 2.5 in 2016. Hillary Clinton didn't win North Carolina. And we also know that Georgia, and Biden was able to win Georgia. But remember, it was very close. So we always have to, this is what I'm trying to tell you. If you looking at these numbers, again, Trump is still holding the lead in Georgia. I think Harris took the lead briefly at 48.4 in early September, but hasn't had a lead since then in the state of Georgia. So I'm not going to sugarcoat things for you guys. The reality is, even though Biden was able to win Georgia in 2020, that race was extremely close. He didn't win by a lot. So where does that put us? It puts us at 270 to win. It's time to do the damn thing. Let's dive on in. We're going to make predictions here. So here we go. I know Susanna said, Jesus, this is crazy making. It's crazy. I told you. I knew she would blow that lead. I just knew it. They should have continued talking about the economy. They went straight down the I'm a woman and I'm black and you're black and we all are together because we're all blackity black, or we're all women. That was a terrible idea. All right. Time to play. And I don't know why it did this again. Did someone play with this? I have to change these again. I don't know why it keeps doing this when I had it as one way, but sometimes these things change. So we're going to bring the swing states back in and we are going to make some predictions. We're making these predictions based on the information that I just showed you. Because the reality is, folks, that's what I got to go on. That's what I have to go off of. Okay. Let's go ahead and start. We're just doing the swing states, obviously. We're going to start with the Sun Belt here, ladies and gentlemen. I think that'll be the easiest one to make a prediction of. I told you guys back during that time, right now, Democrats 226, Republicans 219. So one thing to keep in mind is that the Democratic Party has an advantage. They are already ahead with 226, right? But I just kept it real with you. When Biden was in this race, I told you I believe that Arizona was going to be red. And the reason why I said that is because of the border issue. That doesn't change for me with Kamala Harris. I am going to make Arizona a light red. I believe that Arizona will be a Republican, a red state again, simply because of the immigration issue with the border. That is something we've heard a lot from people in Arizona. So I will make that one for Donald Trump. Then we're going to pivot over here to Nevada. Nevada is interesting. Kamala Harris and Trump have kind of been going back and forth with Nevada. I feel like it could go either way. Kamala Harris just had a rally there in Las Vegas. This one's going to be a tough call, but if I had to make a guess, going back to what we just saw, let's go back up here to Nevada. Sorry, guys. I just want to check one more time. Make sure I got my numbers straight. Yeah, I need to see this chart. Yeah. I think going back to what I saw, I think Nevada may actually become red again, a light red. Although this one, Nevada is going to be, that's a tough one for me. But I say that just because of the way that the polls have been trending. So because the polls have been trending favorable for Donald Trump in Nevada, I think that has a possibility of going to Donald Trump if I were to make a prediction today. That one's going to be a tough one though, guys. So if I get that one wrong, please don't shoot me. Now we're going to move our butts over to Georgia. I said this from day one and I still stand by it. I said it when Biden was in the race and I'm saying it with Kamala in the race. Every poll that I've looked at, including some of these ones with the Muslim voter polls as well. Remember, there is a significant Muslim population in Georgia, Pennsylvania, and Michigan. I'm actually going to give Georgia to Donald Trump. I believe that Georgia is going to be red again. I did not believe that Georgia would be a blue state again. And also, when I look at the numbers between Biden and Trump for 2020, Georgia was incredibly close between both of them. So it's not like Biden won by a significant amount. When I look at how close it is between Trump and Kamala Harris, Trump is still holding that lead in Georgia. I'm going to go ahead and give Georgia to Donald Trump. We're pulling our booties up to North Carolina. North Carolina, again, based on the information that I showed you about them pulling $1.7 million of media out of North Carolina in those blue cities like Charlotte and Greensboro, that tells me that something internally is telling them that Kamala Harris is not going to be able to pull it out in North Carolina. So that one is going to be a light red as well. Then we're going to pull our little booties up here to Wisconsin. I'm sorry, I'm doing Pennsylvania last. That is probably the toughest one for me. I'm just going to keep it real. Wisconsin is interesting. Out of the blue wall states, between Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, you have to remember that Wisconsin is the most conservative. So with that in mind, and looking at the way that the numbers are trending, at one point I thought Kamala could probably squeak it out in Wisconsin, but if the numbers are continuing to trend the way that they are today, I would actually have to give Wisconsin to Donald Trump. I know some of you looking at this probably think this is insane. I think it's insane too. I really do. I really do, but I'm going by the data. And then we're going to move over to Michigan. This is tricky. Michigan tends to be the more liberal state between Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. This is the one that's more liberal. However, while I'm tempted to give that one to Kamala Harris, the recent endorsement of Donald Trump from the Muslim mayor of Dearborn Heights, that gives me pause. The fact that Donald Trump has now caught up to Kamala Harris in Michigan, that gives me pause. The fact that Jill Stein has the most support between Muslim voters in Michigan above Kamala Harris, and that particular demographic did help pull Joe Biden over, in 2020 with Michigan, that definitely gives me pause. So because of that, I'm going to have to say, then there's the auto workers. Some of the auto workers not feeling too keen about electric vehicles coming in because that could affect their jobs. There's that as well. There's the economy issue. We're talking about people that are in communities where people have these jobs like manufacturing. They wanted to come back. So there's a couple of things happening here with Michigan. And because of that, people are probably going to slap me over the head for this one, but I'm going to actually make Michigan light red for Donald Trump. I think he might be able to squeak it out in Michigan, even though it's more liberal. And that's because of the issues that I just told you. And now we go to Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is probably the hardest one on this map because the reality is, when you look at Philly, you look at Pittsburgh, like these are cities that are more likely to go blue. Biden won Pennsylvania, Trump won Pennsylvania, but before 2016, Pennsylvania was blue. I was surprised when it turned red in 2016. That being said, the fact that once again, Donald Trump has seemed to catch up to Kamala Harris in Pennsylvania, that in itself is very telling. So there's that. The other problem that you run into with Pennsylvania, which I covered a couple of days ago, Kamala Harris is not doing well in Philadelphia the way that Joe Biden did. Joe Biden had an advantage because he's from Pennsylvania. People were willing to give him the benefit of the doubt because he's one of them. Kamala Harris is not seeing that same type of, support that Joe Biden saw in Pennsylvania. Now, what has thrown a wrench into this is the comments that were made at the Trump MAGA rally. The fact that Pennsylvania does have 450,000 Puerto Ricans, Americans, who some may be offended. Is that going to be enough to make most of them want to come out and vote for Kamala Harris? I don't know that it will. Plus, I think voter registration in Pennsylvania ended already anyway. So that being said, and considering that even though Joe Biden won Pennsylvania in 2020, he also won it by a narrow margin against Donald Trump, and Kamala's not from there, with everything that I told you, I'm giving Pennsylvania to Donald Trump. Listen, this is very hard for me to do. This was very hard. Like I went over this in my head multiple times. And part of me still wants to go back and change Michigan to Kamala. Like part of me wants to do that, but I just don't, I don't know, man. I don't know how she pulls this out without the Muslim voters. If I am correct, this would mean that Donald Trump would sweep the swing states. And I can't even believe it. Like I'm trying to figure this out myself. I'm like, I throw my hands up in the air sometimes saying, "Ayo, let's go." I'm confused. I don't understand it, but I'm just going by the data. I'm going by the data, and I'm not a Trump supporter. I'm not a Kamala supporter. I'm voting for Jill Stein. But based on the data and based on some of the activity that's been happening behind the scenes with the campaign, pulling out ads, removing money from certain markets, that's a sign. We could be possibly looking at a Trump swing state sweep. That would bring you Donald Trump to 312, and that would bring Kamala Harris to 226. Anybody want me to change it? I can change it. I can go back and make Michigan. I can make Michigan lean blue, right? That still gives the edge to Donald Trump. Like she still can't win. And let's go back and add Pennsylvania. I mean, I don't know. We playing around having fun, right? Even if she gets Michigan and Pennsylvania, that's 260 to 278. She still can't win. This is why I just, Yeah, man. I don't know. I'm gonna get a lot of hate for this video. Watch. People are gonna be mad at me. They were like, "Yeah, that's Sabby. I knew you were gonna." I'm just going by the data. Like me or not. Let's get to some of the comments. Aye. Thank you, Hussein. Honest question. Do you think the sentiment for Arabs and Muslims will ever get better? When we are in the media or Hollywood, it's always negative, very sad. I feel that same way about my people too, Hussein. I feel that same way. I don't know. I really don't know. I will say I think more people have woken up to what's happening. I'll tell you that much. More people have woken up. Thank you, Better You. If Trump wins, I think he will pressure Bibi to make a deal with F-boy Joe so he doesn't have to deal with it coming into office. Interesting. Hey, Tam, what's up? Sabby, what do you think about Alan Lichtman's keys? He predicts a Kamala win. I know. And I kept saying that too. I was like, but Alan Lichtman said she's going to win. But I shouldn't just say Kamala's going to win because Alan Lichtman said Kamala's going to win. But I will say this. I think at this point, based on the numbers, in order for Kamala Harris to win, I think that she would have to have massive turnout on election day. That's what she would need because the numbers right now do not look like they're in her favor. Thank you. I know myself. MSN used whack polls, standard deviation too wide. Thank you. LKS or IKS. Sorry. Thank you for the super sticker. Thank you. Cool Blue. 2020, Biden carried California by plus 5.1 million and New York by plus 1.992 million. Nationally, plus 7 million, both states plus 7 million. They will likely dramatically shift away to help deliver Republican pickup of U.S. popular vote with the U.S. president. Yeah, I do see, I feel like from what I've been hearing and what I've been reading, it seems like Trump has been making gains in New York State and California. Thank you, Lawn Guy. In response to what Max said, liberal commentators getting lefty points being good on Gaza, except Ta-Nehisi Coates telling you they're laundering this to keep sheep herding. Thank you, Lawn Guy. And thank you for this one. Oh, sheep herding libs that all of a sudden pro-Palestinian, it's an act. That's a good point. Thanks, Cool Blue. Sabby home state, Massachusetts, the second best for 2020 Biden and Dems, carried by plus 33 points. It will perhaps lower much closer to plus 23, repeat pattern in many states. Look, there's been a lot of Trump signs here that I didn't see in 2016 and I did not see in 2020. I mean, there were always Trump supporters, but I see a lot of Trump signs now. Thank you, Joey Peltier, for being a member for 16 months. Land back for Turtle Island and Palestine. Free Leonard Peltier. That's right. Thank you, Cool Blue. Real clear politics on generic congressional vote switched over the weekend for Republicans. Since 2000, the party which won U.S. popular vote for U.S. House prevailed for U.S. president, including 2000 and 2016. Thanks, Courtney. I believe that California will shock everyone. I don't think that Cali will turn red, but I don't think Kamala will get the votes that's expected. Interesting. Thanks, Ineb. Sabby, I noticed that dip aligns with when her campaign did two things. One, the Cheney endorsement, and two, released her platform. Ooh, good point. Thank you, Cool Blue. Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin states with longest streak voting for winners. Since 2008, with 4 in a row, they will again carry the winner here in 2024, path to the White House. I agree. Thank you, Ace Play. It's the, we're going to say Zionists that teach their children to kill. They're taught that everyone will be a slave to them. Zionists believe Edom and Esau needs eradication. And thank you for this one as well, Ace Play. Who is Edom and Esau? Modern day American and Europe. Thank you, Shalon. Catching up. My Muslim friends voting for Trump fear Stein won't win, and they feel like they can't continue this way. They know he's pro-Israel, but their families weren't dying in his administration. It may seem crazy, but they're desperate and grieving. Wow. Wow, Shalon. It's good to hear that, though, the explanation there, because I think a lot of people are just kind of like, what is happening? Thank you, Cool Blue. Uh-oh. I don't know what's happening. Oh, thank you. Sabby, this map is my prediction. 312 EVs. Oh, so we have the same one. All right, Cool Blue. So we're here then. Thank you, Savannah. Sabby, you have done the best election analysis throughout. I have really enjoyed it. Thank you so much. Thank you and welcome. Hey. Let's go to Christopher. Sabby, is New Hampshire in play? New Hampshire hasn't been red in years. The problem that you're going to run into at New Hampshire, particularly southern New Hampshire, which is where it's more populous, is that it's a lot of ex-Massachusetts. So it's a lot of people from Massachusetts that move to New Hampshire to buy a house because it's cheaper to buy a house in New Hampshire, and they still have the liberal politics. That's part of the reason why I think New Hampshire has not turned red in quite a long time. So that one's tricky. That's why I keep telling people, I'm like, you got to remember, like, the southern part of New Hampshire is pretty liberal. All right. Thank you, Kia. Sabbathy, Twitter is going crazy over Joe Biden's comments about calling Trump supporters garbage today. He came out and said it was a mistake, but oh boy. And there's things like that. Oh, man. Shout out to Nicole DeLuca for becoming a member. Give Nicole a big whoop, whoop. And thank you, Juanita. Sabby, I just moved to Utica, Michigan of Trump signs. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. I've never seen this many Trump signs in Massachusetts. Not in 2016, not in 2020. Interesting. Okay. Smash the like button if you haven't had a chance to do so. And we are going to go through Nevada tonight. Nevada has 7 ballot measures. And after that, we will be heading into call-in. So stay tuned. Nevada, one of the swing states, also has ballot measures this November that you should be quite aware of. We are diving into Nevada, also known as, the fun casino desert state. Quick rundown of Nevada. In Nevada, citizens of Nevada may initiate statutes through the process of indirect initiative. Now, this means that after a successful petition drive, the initiative is presented to the legislature to adopt, to pass, then signed by the governor, becoming law. But if it's rejected, it goes straight to the ballot for voters to weigh in on. So let's see what is happening with Nevada. Now, there's one part here that I do want to mention as well. Legislative alteration. For 3 years after initiated statute is approved, it may not be amended, annulled, repealed, or set aside or suspended by the legislature. Amendments initiated by voters that lawmakers wish to be repealed must be put to the voters. Here's a quick note here from Roger, who helps me with these. He said, this is unique to Nevada because in other states, there is no waiting time where the legislature can start the repeal, amend, set aside, suspend, and annulment process right away with no voter input. The only thing about this is the 3-year waiting period, which starts after approval, not after a law goes fully into effect. Sometimes it takes years before a law realizes full implementation. So I do that and stretch that 3 years to a decade of full implementation. Here is question 1. Remove constitutional status of Board of Regents amendment. A yes vote supports removing the constitutional status of the Board of Regents, which governs, controls, and manages the state universities in Nevada, thereby allowing the state legislature to review and change the governing organization of state universities. Interesting. I don't know how I feel about this one. Okay. So important thing about this one, it says the Board of Regents is an elected board that oversees 8 public institutions in the higher ed in Nevada, including the University of Nevada system. It is composed of 13 voting members elected by 6-year terms in by district elections. Interesting. Who supports this? Clark County Education Association. One of the arguments here, you'll see, it says by Hawa Ahmad, lobbyist representing the Clark County Education Association. So remember, it's a lobbyist. So just keep that in mind when you listen to what they're saying. It says that CCEA supports this resolution because we believe that K through 12 education delivery system in Nevada needs to be well funded with sufficient transparency and accountability measures to reach the goal of economic diversification in the state of Nevada. Interesting. Okay. Who is opposed to this? Nevada State Education Association, of course. One of the arguments here, elected boards are in place to ensure schools and colleges reflect the values of the people, providing direct lines of accountability to the community. This is the main reason elected boards are preferable to appointed or hybrid models. Appointed officials are shielded by an appointing authority who typically has significant other responsibilities in addition to board appointments. It is extremely rare to see an elected official voted out of office over the actions or conduct of another official they have appointed. This is truer still when the appointment is made by another deliberative body. Interesting. Oh my God, it's Archie! Archie! Oh my God, for people who don't know, I love Archie comics. Holy smokes. As soon as I saw Archie's face pop up, I used to read Archie comics when I was growing up. I would spend my allowance money on this kid, on Archie and Betty and Veronica. Hell yeah. Sorry. Okay, let's get back to the ballot measure. I'm sorry, guys. I just saw Archie's face pop up and I like, whoa. Campaign money. There's been no money spent to support or oppose that measure. A note from Roger said, more interested in your opinion, Sabs. This is right up your alley. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about this. I don't know that I would vote in favor of this. This one here with the government control. I don't know. I don't think I would support that. That's just my take. Question 2. Revising language related to public entities for individuals with mental illness, blindness, or deafness amendment. A yes vote supports revising language in the state constitution related to public entities that benefit individuals with mental illness, blindness, or deafness. So let's look at this a little bit closer, okay? Let's I want to see something here. So who supports this? State Senator Robin Titus. One of the arguments is I'm aware that when the Nevada Constitution was written, different terminologies were used to describe persons with disabilities or a mental illness. However, more than 156 years after Nevada was admitted into the Union, it is time to give these words a more critical look. We should change them to contemporary language that is not deemed to be discriminatory or narrow. That's interesting. There's no opposition to this. So that's very telling. And no money spent to support or oppose it, right? Interesting. What's up, Athos? Athos says, I'm in Vegas. What's up? Party over here. What else did you... This state is going to turn red. Yeah, that's kind of the gut feeling I get, right? Interesting. Okay, 3. All right, guys, this is another state that has ranked choice voting. Top 5 ranked choice voting initiative for Nevada. A yes vote supports establishing open top 5 primaries and ranked choice voting for general elections. Now, this would apply to congressional, gubernatorial, state executive, official, and state legislative elections. All right. Let's break this down. Top 5 primaries. This establishes top 5 primaries for a partisan office. With ranked choice voting, it will establish ranked choice voting for general elections for partisan office. Okay. So what it says here is that at the general election, voters would elect state and federal candidates using ranked choice voting. For state executive, legislative, and congressional elections, voters would rank the 5 candidates that advance from their top 5 primaries. Okay, so this one gets a little tricky. I hate, like, the way they word ranked choice voting on these ballot measures is really annoying to me, because I feel like they explain it in a way that makes people confused. And I worry, we've gone over this one before, the way they're trying to do this, these top 5 primaries, I'm not sure that this would help. I'm not sure that this would help third parties. That's what I'm concerned about, because this top 5 in the primary, that could, it said a candidate need a simple majority of the vote, 50% plus 1, to be declared the winner of an election. If no candidate wins a simple majority of the vote, the candidate with the fewest votes would be eliminated. The candidate with the fewest votes would be eliminated, which would probably be the people who are third parties. People who voted for that candidate as their first choice would have their votes redistributed to their next choice. The tabulation process would continue as rounds until a candidate receives a majority of the vote and is declared winner. Let me see if who supports this? Wynn Resorts, of course, casino. Organizations Institute for Political Innovation, Represent Us, Represent Women, Vote Nevada. One of the arguments here is that ranked choice voting is sweeping the nation, and it's not hard to see why. This simple change to our election benefits the voters, not the political establishment or special interest. Okay, but I'm wondering about this top 5 primary. That's the part that throws me off a little bit. And I just, Eric said that's pretty standard RCV methodology. Okay, I guess it's better to have it than not to have it, right, guys? Okay, and who is opposed to it? Of course, politicians. Oh my God. Okay. Democrats and one Republican politician are opposed to it. So I think that's your answer, folks. So if I was in Nevada, I would vote in favor of this ranked choice voting. Oh, buddy. And also Governor Steve Sisolak is also opposed to this. The Nevada State AFL-CIO, Let Nevadans Vote, Battle-Born Progress. And one of the arguments here from Protect Your Vote Nevada, this petition you're being asked to sign doesn't do what supporters say it does. Instead, it's about out-of-state corporate billionaires trying to influence our elections. Their petition would make our elections unnecessarily confusing, complicated, and riddled with errors. Honey, the billionaires already fund and control both parties. So get out of here. Oh my God. Check it out, fam. There's over $19 million spent to support it and over $2 million to oppose. Interesting. And there's another one here. Note from Roger. He said, unless there is a competitive, robust public financing of elections, this can crowd out alternative parties too. Yeah, it's tricky. I mean, it's like, but that could be Nevada's only chance to get ranked choice voting. I mean, it didn't pass here in Massachusetts, and I wish it would have. Question 4. remove slavery as punishment for a crime from the Constitution Amendment. This is a big one. It's still there, right? It's still there. A yes vote supports repealing language from the Nevada Constitution that allows the use of slavery and involuntary servitude as criminal punishments. Yeah, buddy. We're going back to the old school paperwork. Some of these things are still there, right? And it tells you 8 states, Arkansas, Indiana, Kentucky, Minnesota, Mississippi, Nevada, North Dakota, and Wisconsin have constitutions that include provisions prohibiting enslavement and involuntary servitude, with the exception of criminal punishment. These additional states, California, Georgia, Iowa, Kansas, Louisiana, Michigan, North Carolina, and Ohio, have constitutions that include provisions permitting involuntary servitude, but not slavery as a criminal punishment. It's crazy when you think about it. Who supports this? Democrat politicians, Dallas Harris, Patricia Spearman, etc. Organizations, ACLU of Nevada, Abolish Slavery National Network. One of the arguments is, I believe that it is time for us to move forward and make it clear and unequivocal that nobody will ever live through the horror of state-sanctioned slavery or servitude ever again. Yeah. I think it's old language, but it's still there. Like, it's crazy that it's still there in the books. No money spent to support or oppose. Roger says better late than never. Yeah, buddy. Sales tax exemption for diapers. Hello? Hello, fam. Listen, for all the moms with the babies in the house, say, ayo, if you're a mom, you got a baby and you live in Nevada, I think you probably can get down with this. Diapers are expensive. Every time I've gone to a baby shower, I try to get diapers, right? Just because I know they're expensive. But sales tax exemption for diapers measure. A yes vote supports amending the sales and use tax of 1955 to provide a sales tax exemption for child and adult diapers. Diapers in the house. Diapers in the house. This is a good one, I think. I really do. Who supports this? Baby's Bounty. Battle-born progress. One of the arguments here, without a sufficient supply of clean diapers, babies are at risk for a host of illnesses, including skin infections, rashes, urinary tract infections, and viral meningitis. With newborns requiring 8 to 10 diapers per day, families can spend over $1,200 per year on diapering supplies. In addition to the health consequences, diapers play a crucial role in our economy, profoundly impacting the opportunity available to parents. Without an adequate supply of diapers, parents aren't able to send their children to daycare, preventing their attendance at work or school. Honey, you could have just summed this up by saying, look, diapers are expensive. Like, you ain't had to go into all that. But I think it's a good idea. And there is no money spent to support or oppose it. So there you go, Nevadans. And then we're not going to read that from Roger. Question 6, right to abortion initiative. This is very telling too, because see, some of these states where Kamala's rallying about the abortion measure, in a state like Georgia and Nevada, where it's on the ballot, they may not necessarily feel as empowered to come out and support her on that message because they already have it on their ballot. Something to think about there. Anywho, a yes vote supports providing a state constitutional right to an abortion, providing for the state to regulate abortion after fetal viability, except where medically indicated to protect the life or health of the pregnant patient. The amendment would establish that this right will not be denied, burdened, or infringed upon unless justified by a compelling state interest, which is defined as an interest which is limited exclusively to the state's interest in protecting, maintaining, or improving the health of an individual who is seeking abortion care that is consistent with accepted clinical standards of practice. Under this measure, fetal viability is defined at the point of pregnancy when there is a significant likelihood of the fetus sustained survival outside the uterus without the application of extraordinary medical measures in the professional judgment of the patient's health practitioner. So let's check this out. We need to see how much money spent for this one. Who supports this? Of course, Kamala Harris supports this. All Democrats, basically. And you'll see U.S. senators too. Look, Jackie Rosen, Stephen Horsford, Susie Lee, right? And of course, state representatives as well. The ACLU of Nevada also supports this. Feminist Majority Foundation, Human Rights Campaign, NAACP Las Vegas, Nevada Women's Lobby. And one of the arguments here, we are in a crisis like we've never been before with reproductive freedom all over the country, including here in Nevada. States like ours, which have statutory protections, which are awesome, need to expand those protections by putting covenant protections in our state constitution. Okay, who's opposed to this? One politician. It's interesting. It's one compared to all the other ones. State Representative Ken Gray. You know what's interesting? That none of the other Republican congressmen decided to oppose it. Makes you wonder about that. Candidates, Sam Brown, Republican, he's a candidate for U.S. Senate. And organizations, Nevada Right to Life, Priests for Life, Students for Life Action. One of the arguments, as a woman, nothing makes me angrier than Democrats taking one of the most difficult and traumatic decisions a woman can make and using it for political fodder, scaring women. It's despicable. There's over $11.2 million to support this and no money to oppose it, which means, ladies and gentlemen, I know no opposition to it. I was kind of surprised by that, but that means that most likely it will pass, right? And the last one is number 7, which is Voter Identification Initiative. A yes vote supports amending the Constitution to require that Nevada residents present a form of photo identification to verify their identity while voting in person, or to verify their identity using the last 4 digits of their driver's license or their social security number when voting by mail. Acceptable forms of photo ID would include driver's license, ID card issued by the state or federal government, an employee photo identification issued by the government, U.S. passports, military card, student photo, tribal photo, and Nevada concealed firearms permit or another form of government issued photo ID. It says the photo ID must be current or expired for no more than 4 years. If you're 70 years or older, the identification can be expired for any length of time as long as it is valid. Who supports this? Governor Joe Lombardo, as well as Donald Trump. It says here, the overwhelming support from citizens across the Silver State demonstrate a clear demand for measures that protect the sanctity of our vote. Who opposes this? Battleborn Progress. I'm surprised no politicians oppose this. That's interesting. One of the arguments here is from Emily, who's the executive director of Silver State Voices. The proposed voter ID measure would dramatically change our voting system and complicate voting for individuals in our communities. Voter ID laws disproportionately impact voters of color and do nothing to make our elections more secure. I'm surprised that no politicians oppose that. So there's over $1.8 million spent to support it and $0 spent to oppose it. And that's Nevada, folks. All right. We are going to do call in, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to take a quick big break. Eric's going to pop on. I think we have a couple of comments here, Eric, that you can highlight, and I'll be back.
Some chats. Oh, we also had some love for Archie and Veronica, talking about Jughead, and a lot of love from Veronica on the chat. Anyways, this is the part of the show where we're working our way towards transitioning to the Zoom hangout part of the show. Sabby actually tends to set up the room while she's on her break. It's kind of the hangout formerly known as Call-In. It used to be done on the Call-In app, and then the Call-In app got bought and discontinued. So now we do it on Zoom. But we'll be giving you that link for that room shortly. In the meantime, I'm going to catch some of these super chats. Let's see what we get on the board here. Thanks for this one, Wanker Tanker, who says Palestinian journalist Rami Yunus predicts Israel's civil war in 1 to 2 years. It says they need to stop genocide and apartheid. Mm-hmm. And thanks for this one from Brown Eyes, who says, I like how you break down the Electoral College. Do you think it's room to cheat? I mean, I don't know if it's cheating so much. It's a form of it. I think it's a way of kind of making the system, a little more disconnected from the actual voters themselves. That was, back when that Electoral College was put into place. It was kind of the thing where the landowners and kind of the lords of the land wanted to make sure that these elections went their way, and it kind of has hung around as an anachronism. I think the political parties and the media, the political media, I think they love the way the elections run now, because it gives a lot of drama and a lot of things to focus on state by state, and it's a big election night and so forth. And I think that's why they like it and keep it around. But yeah, I think it's long past time to simply elect the president based on how many votes they get in the country. What a concept, right? And thanks for the super chat from Edward Shore, who says, never vote for evil, go Greens. Yes, sir. I like this one that Zalapa put in the quote from Eugene Debs, saying, better to vote for what you want and get it than to vote for what you don't want. It's better for what you want, vote for what you want and get it, than it is to vote for what you don't want and get it. Actually, all right, the original quote, I think, was, I'd rather vote for what I want and not get it than vote for what I don't want and then get it. Anyways, one of those versions of the quote was, I think, right, but it's a cool quote from Eugene Debs. And Sabby already spotted and read this one from the Archie way. Yes, that got us into the Archie group. And yeah, like I said shortly ago, we're going to be transitioning into the Zoom Hangout shortly. Just rigging up here. We got one tipped comment, as we call it, that came in on the Rockfins. Let's check that one out. Thanks for this tip comment on Rockfin. R. Dean W., who says, Nevada's neighbor, Utah, implemented a bastardized version of ranked choice voting. Ranked choice voting is only part of voting in odd years. Too bad, POTUS voters, and it's set to sunset after 2025. And yeah, talking about the limitations of what Utah put in there. Well, I mean, maybe it's a start. It's we also sometimes need to remember that even if the new systems aren't perfect, they're probably a big improvement on the current system, which is basically just everything comes down to having the parties do their primaries, which for some reason are run like regular elections using the same voting booths and voting machinery. And then, they have this veneer of officiality because of the way the Democratic Republican primaries are run. And you end up with, these two candidates who almost always then make it, end up being the person who is voted in the general election. And so even when you have systems that aren't as good, like runoff systems, they are an improvement. I think they're full of ranked choice voting. I mean, I think the best thing is just to get rid of the primaries altogether and just have a single day election and run it with ranked choice voting, and just get it done, then and there, and you get rid of the spoiler effect, and what Sabrina was describing in the way that ranked choice voting measure acted, where you look at the results. If no one has 50 plus 1%, you kind of take out the person at the bottom, and then you look at the results again, and that's actually is the fair, proper way to do ranked choice voting. The other thing I wanted to mention was that there is also the version of ranked choice voting called star voting, where rather than numbering people 1, 2, 3, 4 based on how you rank them, it's a system where you give them stars. And so you give your favorite candidate 5 stars, like you would a 5-star review or a 5-star movie. And then you go 4 stars and 3 stars for, if you like them less and less. And, I think that's an intriguing system that may get rid of some of that so-called confusion around ranked choice voting. I don't think it's really that confusing, but if people are going to make that argument, they can also, we can also look at the star voting version of it. And we had a late arriving super chat here. Thanks for this one from Audra Walton, who says, land back for American freedmen. Thanks for that one. And let me just take a quick look at my notes about what we were discussing. Yeah, one of the other things that came up, actually Roger mentioned this, with if you're doing ranked choice voting, you also really, if you're really going to fix things, need to tackle public financing of elections and getting the big money out of electoral politics. And so that can be state-run measures for public financing of elections. It also gets into, you really need to start getting serious about a constitutional amendment, a move to amend style amendment that fixes big money in politics, in that it allows the states and the federal government to regulate the big money, which is, really crucial to dealing with that issue. So yeah, I agree with that, dealing with the money in politics and getting in public financing of election and doing ranked choice voting really kind of go hand in hand, and they should go hand in hand. There was like the voter ID question that came up as well. And I mean, here, in Massachusetts, the way the elections have always run is that they have the voter rolls, and you go up to vote, and you give your name and your address, and they check you off on the voter rolls. They match it up, and then you go in to vote. And if someone is seeing a big problem in that system, I've yet to hear a convincing problem of what the big problem is. The idea of actually gaming that type of system and having like a voter fraud scheme that throws the election based on that system is really not feasible. It's really a silly concept. And and we can talk about this in the Zoom Hangout call-in if people have an idea of how that would work, that someone would actually game an election because people didn't have to show their ID. It's like, how would they do that? So I just wanted to put that out there. Like, you don't need voter ID, and who does voter ID impact? It impacts people of lower income, people who have trouble or for whatever reason can't get a voter ID. And so that's really why they do those schemes, and it's something to get everybody excited about. And it's voter suppression, I think, is what people just need to hear when they hear voter ID.
Yeah, I mean, the way we do it here in Massachusetts is by your address. Do it.
You go up and say your name and address, they check you up, they give you a ballot. What's the problem?
Yeah, I know some states have had problems, but that's the way we do it here. And I mean, I haven't had any issues in Massachusetts. When I lived in South Carolina, that was not the case, though. People have had issues in South Carolina. So yeah, but it's time for call-in, fam. You ready? All right. So the link is pinned to the top of the chat, the YouTube chat, the Zoom link. I'll go ahead and open it while I'm on stream. The passcode is right here. It's 565079. Let me go ahead.
Set up on sabbysabs2.com.
Yeah. If you go to sabbysabs2.com, you'll see the link and the passcode there as well. But I like to open the Zoom, at least while I'm on the stream, just to make sure people have no difficulty getting in. Yeah, people are already joining. Eric, I see you. I'll go ahead and make you a co-host.
Cool.
So there you go.
Right.
And
we'll see you in there.
If you want to speak, all you do is raise your hand on the Zoom. And the way that you do that is at the bottom where it says reactions. Just click on reactions and then raise your hand. We ask that everybody mute. Go ahead and mute everyone when you come in. And then again, if you want to speak, you just raise your hand, click on reactions at the bottom and click raise hand. And that's how you get to speak. All right. Again, that link and that passcode is on sabbysabs2.com. That is it for me tonight, guys. I will see you again live Thursday evening. Have a good night. Keep up the fight.